It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Iannacco's here. Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell. The whole gang is assembled. Time to talk Apple. Lots to talk about, too, including Apple's plans to replace the Qualcomm modem in all of their devices with their own brand modem. And that even means in the Vision Pro. We'll find out more about that. Apple's first competitor on the iPhone for Apple Pay is arriving in Norway. What does that mean? And why you should be very careful with that QR code you get before you pick up your new laptop. Plus a special present under Jason Snell's tree. All of that and more. Coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 951, recorded Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. Launder it through Belkin. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple, most of which will be rumors today because it's that time of year. It's getting to look a lot like Christmas. Notice we have decorated the Twit attic with bottle brush Christmas trees. It's acquired at very little cost from Amazon.com. Hello, Andy Iannacco. Where's the library decorations?
Actually, I stole them all because I thought that my place wasn't looking very festive. So I thought, why should the public have these lights?
Well, it is a lending library. They should lend you.
And I'm going to bring it right back as soon as like the Feast of the Epiphany is over with.
By the way,
not one day later.
Andy, I think, has cornered the market on Dr. Pepsi Tall Boys. Is that a tall boy you're drinking there?
Oh, well.
You got to switch to him or we won't know. There you. It does look like it's 23 ounces.
So 16 ounces, a full pint for people in freedom units.
It's a liter of Dr. Pepper. Good to see you, Andrew. Also here from officehours.global and 090 Media, the one, the only Alex Lindsay. Hello, Alex.
Hello. Good to be here.
Am I supposed to say Lindsay?
No, it's just Lindsay's fine. The EY typically is the English Lindsay's and the AY is the Scottish Lindsay's.
Oh, you're those Scott.
But we all say Lindsay all the way through.
If it doesn't have an A, it's not great. It's crap.
We split up and then some of us ended up fighting with.
That's interesting. E is
William
English,
Wallace and lost
and
a lot of
A is wearing a kilt. All right, that's good to know. Hi, Alex. Also here, Mr. Jason Snell, 6 of them colors.
So many
Wait
colors.
a minute. You're in the living room.
It's a lie. It's a lie. I just felt like I needed to get in the Christmas spirit because you made me. But I'm just, I'm where I'm always.
Oh, but I like
I'm always
it.
here.
I'm
always here. But I do have that's we do.
When
what
we had a
have to.
Burke back in the studio days, we would really overdo it. I think we would really decorate this. There was one year, a couple of years ago, where I noted. I think it was on a MacBreak Weekly. I noted that we had not yet decorated, and it was already well into December, and Burke threw up on the set. He just brought everything in and threw it in. I don't have a Burke. Well, he's here, but he's not here. So I had to do my own decorating. I kind of like those. We ordered them live on This Week in Google, and they finally arrived. So, let's talk about the modem, because that's probably the source of most of the new rumors, including the iPhone Air, which everybody acts as if like, that's a given. They're going to definitely do that next year.
I don't know. I guess it depends on whether you think that they're going to be making it as a separate product and a separate SKU and a separate name with a separate product line, or whether they're just thinking of ways that, because we've got all these hardware changes that no one has even rumored about yet, we are actually going to be able to make them thinner. And because people who get access to this information only has part of the story, they think, there's something called the iPhone Air that's going to be really, really making a lot of news in 2026, 2027. I like the idea of like having a new kind of fashion, for lack of a better word, iPhone, because when you make, I disdain making things thinner for the sake of it. But the phone is the one area where if you take 1 millimeter off of it, it is shocking how much smaller it feels in the hand.
Okay, because we're talking a couple of millimeters at best.
Right, exactly. 2 millimeters, they're saying. And the other thing is that if they are interested in making a folding phone, they're going to have to figure out a way how to make that phone thinner. So maybe this is just laying the groundwork for here's the boards and here's the chips we're going to be using if we decide that making a folding phone is ever a good thing.
Maybe it's not the iPhone Air. Maybe it's the iPhone Bend. Is that what you're saying?
Ooh, and they get Ben Kinsley to promote it.
Interesting.
Sir Ben.
Idea.
Yeah, I do know someone who had a folding Samsung, and
I have one.
yeah, they now have an iPhone.
I bought the first and second fold. I have the flip. Let me go get it.
They used it every day, and then they didn't.
I think Andy is right that the path to building a folding phone, you have to learn how to get everything miniaturized and thinner and all that. And they've got that slot that with the Mini and the Plus has obviously not sold to their satisfaction. So they want to try something else in there. And so differentiating based on fashion, feel, making it feel thin and light, and you give up some camera for it. Maybe that is more. I would actually probably guess that it is going to differentiate that phone way more than just saying it is slightly larger or it is slightly smaller.
They won't say it's the thinnest phone we've ever made. It will be actually a separate SKU.
I think it'll actually be impossibly
separate
thin.
line.
I think when we think about the superlative,
this is the flip, and this is exactly what you're talking about. Because, by the way, this is the form factor I prefer to the Fold. I don't think Apple will do this because it's just a folding, standard size folding phone. But you see how thick it becomes,
right? So they got to get that. They got to get that dimension as thin as possible if they're gonna fold it over.
I think it's not having the wrinkle on that screen, which we could see when you opened it.
Oh,
that's the real thing.
Also important.
That's what they should be thinking about.
That's
Honestly,
like,
I agree with that.
every time I see that, I'm like,
if I get the light right.
I think it depends. Like on that style of phone, we're just taking a standard phone and just making it smaller inside your pocket by folding it lengthwise. I think that is a serious thing. When it comes to like the idea of I want an iPhone that turns into a de facto iPad Mini, I've used those kind of folds before, and the first day you can't help but notice it. The second day onward, you just don't notice it at all. It's sort of like remember when phones had a big forehead and chin, and it's like, oh my god, look at all this screen, and then it's not an issue like after 3 or 4 hours.
You know what I don't get used to is that in order to make these foldable, they have to use a different material for maybe this is just a Samsung thing, but this is a little rubbery, and I don't like it compared to glass. But now if you use a screen protector already, maybe you won't feel bad about that. I don't like screen protectors.
A lot of the screen protectors are either glass or glass-like. I mean, I do hope that if they're going towards an Air, I'm hoping that the Pros go the other direction. So they give us thicker, heavier, bigger cameras, bigger stuff. Like that would be
It's already sort of happening, right?
It is happening, but I think that creating a thin one gives them more license to go towards a more pro one. One that I put in a backpack, like a big phone.
And also, I don't think it's a bad idea for Apple to, again, they can't have they can't go back to the Mac world of 1993 where they had 100 different kinds of Macs and no one knew which ones was which. But I think they could. There is room for them having let's experiment with doing a line of phones that is not necessarily the high performance phone and not the budget phone, but this is like the fashionable, nice looking phone that it doesn't have the greatest camera, it doesn't have the greatest specs at all, but it looks really, really good. Because internationally, we forget that the iPhone is not marginal, but it's an aspirational product. It's not the phone that necessarily everybody wants. So anything they could do to have an edge to do the things that no Android phone can do, which is usually look like $1,000 million damn bucks, that might get people to save instead of buying this Samsung or this OnePlus or this whatever, I will buy an Apple phone because I just want this thing in my hand.
This whole conversation began with Mark Gurman's and others, Bloomberg report that Apple plans a 3-year modem rollout in bid to top Qualcomm company. So this is Apple, and we know they've wanted to do this forever, to replace the third-party modem chips they have in there with some of their own making. Won't necessarily save them a lot of money. I think they probably still have to license at least GSM from Qualcomm.
Yeah, but it would give them a lot more freedom with, again, developing everything they want.
Making it skinnier is the big one, I guess.
One of the most interesting things from this report was that this is going to be responsible for knocking another millimeter or two off the thickness of the thing. And
more than half a decade in the making, Apple's in-house modem system, Gurman writes, will debut next spring. So obviously that's not the regular iPhone. Next spring is going to be an SE.
That's an SE. It starts with the SE, right? Which is low stakes.
Yeah, yes. He says because it will not be as fast as Qualcomm's modem initially, so putting it in the SE makes kind of sense until they get it to that performance level.
And then, and so the idea there is that there are places this can go, but it can go in the SE, it can go in that thin phone. The idea there is these are phones that are not expected to be the highest possible for performance, right? It allows Apple to test this out, although apparently, first they send people around and test them, but nothing beats testing in the real world, right? So they're going to do that.
Millions of gamma testers is really useful.
Yeah, so that'll be good, but it'll be, again, like remember when they had two different modems in the iPhone and people were like, some iPhones are faster than others and you're paying premium for an iPhone and you might not have gotten the fastest data. They don't want that to happen. So you put it in an SE, you put it in a model that is all about compromise in order to get it thinner. You try it out. That's a good shakedown cruise for you. I was struck by, in Gurman's report, I didn't quite realize this, but Gurman says Qualcomm receives more than 20% of its revenue from Apple. And obviously, some of that is going to be patent licenses if Apple makes their own 5G modem because they have the patents there. But clearly, Apple is also an enormous customer of Qualcomm. And Qualcomm, I mean, if we've all been following this, right? Qualcomm has been telling its shareholders and warning that a major customer will probably transition away from them eventually for a while now. I mean, the good news is it's taken them 5 years and they still haven't done it. So, but once this starts, it will, if Apple can continue and ultimately go through what Gurman says, multiple chip generations to get to the point where they're at parity, and then maybe they can even succeed in, if not best in Qualcomm, getting benefits by integrating the chips. That will be a big hit for Qualcomm because the patents are great and all, but like having them buy your chips is better, and they're going to lose that potentially.
Yeah, Qualcomm does, however, have a big brand new customer in Microsoft, which is using its Snapdragon Elite chips in their Windows on ARM. And it's not just Microsoft, it's all the other PC makers. But I'm sure that they're hoping that will... It's never going to reach the numbers, though, that iPhone reaches, is it? Has
anything happened with the ARM lawsuit and cancellation of Qualcomm's license? I mean, is that gone anywhere? Because that's a really... You combine what Jason just said and ARM's attack on that could get complicated for Qualcomm.
Yeah, no kidding, because everything they make is an ARM chip.
Right.
I think that's just it's a lawsuit, but I think it's a negotiation ploy to get more money out of Qualcomm. Let me just check and see.
They are going to court this month, I guess?
December.
Yeah, they're going to court this month. The one that doesn't necessarily fit inside of court is that there's a part of the contract that says that either one can cancel the contract, which is what ARM did.
Yeah, ARM issued a 60-day notice informing Qualcomm that ARM would cancel its license to use the ARM architecture. That was, let's see, this story came out in last month, a month ago, exactly. So that's interesting. If they really did do that, that means there's one more month.
Right.
So Qualcomm did back down on
this is a negotiation tactic, but it's in the contract. Like gets really hard to get out of, so. Yeah.
I think this is all. I think we can assume it's all negotiation.
And this all comes back to Apple because this is all over the licensing related to the team that left Apple and went to Qualcomm. Qualcomm bought, right? So this is
Nuvia.
Nuvia. This is related to when Nuvia was purchased. ARM said that they should renegotiate the contract, and Qualcomm said no, the contract's the same. ARM said it would be different if it was you than Nuvia.
And I'm sure in these contracts it says if there's an acquisition, we have to renegotiate, and that's usually what's the case. So Gurman writes, Apple's modem has been a long time coming. This is the kind of sad saga of it. When the company set out to build the chip, it originally hoped to bring it to market as early as 5 years ago. To jumpstart the effort, the company invested billions of dollars to set up testing and engineering labs around the world. It spent $1 billion to acquire, you may remember this, Intel's Modem Group.
Yeah.
Millions more hiring engineers from other silicon companies. Setback after setback. The prototypes were too large, ran too hot, weren't sufficiently power efficient. So they've apparently adjusted.
Is this revenge, or is this like they're like, are we just getting back at Qualcomm because we don't like them, or are we benefiting from this? But I think Johnny Srouji, who heads their chip group, felt like this was important because they could ultimately not only build their own, but presumably eventually integrate it into the rest of their silicon. Which they
imagine
know
if you could put it into the system on a chip, into the
exactly.
series,
although it does not speak well. I mean, this has been a rough couple of weeks for Intel. But one of the things Gurman reports is that one of the things they did after they bought Intel's business and they worked on it for a while was start hiring people from Qualcomm, right? Like that the Intel team was not so hot, which I mean, we'll just take him at his word. I'm not surprised that they went, and this is a whole setup especially in San Diego where they're just like hiring
I'd love to read the book about this. Gurman writes, but after adjusting development practices, reorganizing management, and as you say, hiring scores of new engineers from Qualcomm, Apple is now confident its modem will work.
And this is one of the big advantages.
This changes a lot. This changes everything. Go ahead.
This is one of the big advantages for companies in California, both advantage and disadvantages, that there's no non-competes. So you can't, you can just freely steal each other's employees
There were going to be no non-competes nationally, but the courts threw out President Biden's.
But here in California, it's a pretty big deal.
It's been the law for a long time.
Yeah, it's huge. And
actually, it's been the law since I remember this back when I was making contracts with Tech TV. They tried to insert that in my contract, saying I couldn't go to work for another failing cable company, and
not enforceable.
It wasn't enforceable.
I definitely have had friends who couldn't work in the same business for months, right? Because they're in a state that is not as enlightened as California in this case. But I think, look. I think all of us have talked about this a lot and said you don't discount Qualcomm and the value of their years of experience all over the world dealing with other carriers and different regulatory regimes and different frequencies and different, like one of the things this chip's not going to do is millimeter wave, right? Which is a frequency that is used some places but not other places. But the flip side of that is I don't think you should ever bet against Johnny Srouji and Apple's chip team, right? Like if there is a single best part of the last 10 years of Apple, it's the chip team. Like they have killed it. And so if they're building this, I mean, not saying it's a guarantee that they won't mess it up, but I would not bet against them.
Yeah. Also, it sounds like if these rumors are true, it sounds like a really smart play in the way they were to do it. Because there's going to be a heartbreak period the first time they try to manufacture these things at scale. So no, the last thing they want to do is put it in an iPhone where they sell it those numbers. There's also going to be there's no way you can test a brand new modem like that until you get truly millions and millions of people worldwide using it in every single situation. This isn't about the 99%. This is about the 1% for whom your new modem fails. And you can't just simply wipe that away. So, oh, well, that's just an edge case. No, that's a case of someone who's getting basically dial-up modem speeds on a phone that they spent a lot of money for. So the first round is going to be a bunch of beta testers. But to put it into a product where there's going to be lesser expectations is a good play. Lower sales, also a really good play, and will also give them the experience they need to adapt this for all the other pieces of tech that they want to put it into. Because another part of that story has been that, look, if Apple is really, as Jason says, I mean, they really are about let's put everything on the die. Let's basically not just have our own chip, but also we can also integrate and package all these components the way we wanted to. Has that ever been like one of the biggest stumbling blocks in finally having a Mac that has a built-in modem? All these other things hopefully will be opened up once Apple has the ability to not just buy a chip off the shelf and somehow shoe it into whatever the RF profile of this device is, whatever the power and heat profile is of it, but design it exactly for this specific MacBook Air. We could finally get something that I've been wanting for at least 8 years now.
The chip,
and I think.
Go ahead.
All I was going to say is that I think that as Apple gets over the hump, it is, the amount of innovation that starts to get added to this of all kinds of ways that different devices interact with each other over longer distances, over all these other things, allows them to innovate in a way that is going to be very hard for anybody else to do because they don't own the whole stack, and that the fact that Apple, makes Xcode and has has the operating system and all these other things continues to be something that they're able to leverage. So I think it's going to make a lot of sense. It's probably still going to take a long time. It gets back to, there's a lot of things that we we do, not because they're easy, but because we thought they'd be easy. And Apple's got its hands into that tar, and is I think what they come out with will be great, but it probably take the next 10 years longer than they expected.
The Gurman writes, the modem won't be used in Apple's higher-end products. Going to come to a mid-tier iPhone, codenamed D23, later next year. Far thinner design than current models. The chip will also start rolling out as early as next year in Apple's lower-end iPads. Codename Sinope. Two possibilities for where that code name comes from. One, it is a moon of Jupiter with a retrograde orbit. I don't think it's that. It's probably the naiad from Greek mythology who was abducted by the god Apollo, offered to grant a wish. Apollo, she wished to remain a virgin, and Apollo honored her request. So she's the virgin naiad. That's just like a modem, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know why they call it Sinope. There might be a better way. Maybe there's an engineer in there. Saruji, parenthetically, we should note, is one of the named candidates for the new CEO at Intel. I'd be shocked. I think we mentioned this last week. I'd be shocked if Johnny would think about that.
Yeah,
even.
I saw coverage.
Throw a lot of money at him.
I saw coverage from a business publication that was saying, no, that's kind of nuts. I mean, they would basically have to lay before his feet, see our business in ruins. You and only you have the opportunity to start from the bare bones foundation and build an empire that this galaxy has never seen, and we shall rule it hand in hand.
But he's already done that at Apple, so it's kind of not much of an offer, really. All right. Sinope. Isn't it as advanced as the latest modems from Qualcomm, says Gurman. So it will be a downgrade from what you get in the iPhone 16 Pro. What does that mean? If it's not is it not as fast?
I think it's missing support for some bands.
Oh, and it doesn't support millimeter wave, which is that
Verizon that's not a big deal.
5G that you can't get anywhere but Philadelphia and New York.
Right. Exactly. It's hugely fast, but like you have to be like within line of sight and within like throwing a football distance of the tower in order to get things. So big deal.
I do remember when this Apple had I can't remember which version of which iPhone it was, but they had an iPhone that had two modems. One was from Intel, one was from Qualcomm, and they actually had to slow down the Qualcomm modem so that it would match the performance of Intel. You remember that? Remember that story from back in the day?
Yeah, I have to admit, I have such a low expectation of my cellular coverage, and I don't know whether it's just that
Who uses it anymore. Yeah.
Well, no, it's just that I feel like we have dropped calls all the time. That people are like, I can't hear you, and I have to.
You're the last one still using a phone as a phone, though, Alex.
I know.
If the data is okay,
the data sometimes is okay, sometimes isn't. Like I check it a lot because I'm always trying to figure out, can I stream from my phone from here? And so I see it. I see the data a lot, and a lot of times it's not particularly impressive, under 10 megs a second in many places that I'm at. And so I'm kind of like,
Gurman has some pretty good sources. He says in lab tests, the first Apple modem caps out at download speeds of 4 gigabits a second. That seems like sufficient. It's not millimeter wave speed.
If you're buying an SE.
Yeah, but sure, theoretically. But the question is how does it interact with the antennas? And then again, I don't know how much you'd even know because again, on a day-to-day basis, I'm not seeing speeds oftentimes. So there's some places you get to and you're like, wow, I got 80 megs up and down, but it's pretty few and far between.
Well, Gurman also says the modem is better in terms of radiation. Its specific absorption rate, or SAR, is better, is lower.
I think his suggestion there too is that Apple has been able to design it to talk to the system and modulate that better because it has complete control over the device, and that helps. By the way, I can't tell whether remember, they used to do the OS was cat names. I can't tell, but Gurman's got like all the code names.
It's kind of amazing.
These are all mythological figures. They're all also outer solar system moons. So Sinope, Ganymede, and Prometheus. All figures from mythology, but also the first two are moons of Jupiter.
They
and
name
the next
moons
one's the moons
after
mythology. So the question is, did Apple say outer solar system moons, or did they say figures from mythology, or figures from mythology that are named that have outer system moons named after them? I don't know, but anyway, they said that Sinope is like
Sinope.
Starter.
That's how you say it. Okay,
yeah. It's a starter. It's a starter chip, and then Ganymede is supposed to get them sort of caught up with Qualcomm and then Prometheus, good name for this, is the we take it over kind of thing, and that's their 3-stage plan.
Of course, remember,
and get tied to a rock.
Yeah, exactly. Prometheus did not end well, but okay. That eagle can really get you.
That kind of smarts.
Modem will work with another new Apple component, a radio frequency front end system, or RFFE, called Carpo. Is that a moon of Jupiter?
Carpo? I think it's one of the first Marx brothers, the ones that go into accounting.
Before Zeppo, and the part will also take away business from Qualcomm and could eventually affect Qorvo. That's who makes
Carpo is a satellite of Jupiter.
Oh, is Carpo a mythological figure, though?
It is.
Oh.
Yeah, because all the outer solar system moons or all the Jupiter and Saturn moons are mythological figures. There's like Uranus, I think it's like Shakespeare characters or something, but like Jupiter and Saturn, it's all mythological figures. So yeah, that's what it is.
It's like the streets in our city. They're all named after the daughters of the developer. So there's,
Yeah. I mean, you can't do Butthead Astronomer anymore. So you got to choose
a theme. Trees. They used to be trees. Let's see. The Ganymede is expected to go into iPhone 18. As well as upscale iPads. I love the thought, and this is another Bloomberg rumor, that Apple will start putting these chips, since it's making them not only into the iPads, which they're already offering cellular connectivity, but into MacBooks.
Yeah.
Would you like that?
About time. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I'm a big believer in the iPad, cellular iPad. I've bought cellular iPads for the last 5 or 6 years.
Do. Yeah.
And it's just so, and I know everybody's like, oh, but you can tether. It's like, tethering sucks and it drains 2 batteries at once. And tethering's better than nothing, but having a cellular modem in your device is better. It's just better.
And on top of that, what if you don't live in the United States where everybody has an iPhone? What if you live in an Android land? It can be done, but there's a difference between, even if you have an iPhone, there's a difference between there is facility that makes it super, super easy, and no, this is a function of the computer. You don't have to do anything. You just have to not turn the feature off. Yeah, that's no different. No, I would without question pay extra for a modem inside a MacBook.
You might be waiting till 2027, but okay, that's the third modem, Prometheus, which will also have satellite support for the next generation satellite networks. T-Mobile is already got the green light from the FCC to use Starlink to enhance its cellular connectivity. I think in the years to come, we may see that everywhere.
That could be a very big deal, because the incoming head of the FCC is much, much more bullish on satellite connectivity than his predecessors were. That's one area. I know that I said some mean things about him that I thought that are true, but on many areas,
David
I think that he's got some. Exactly. In many areas, he actually has some good ideas. The previous one of the reasons why that Starlink contract got nixed was for a lot of good reasons, but also because the head of the FCC at that time thought that if our goal is to bring broadband to rural communities and underserved areas, we don't want to give an opportunity to create a new super monopoly in satellite internet. We want to use this to foster building of brand new infrastructure that stays in place for everybody, which is fine, but it's the difference between sending out trucks to lay out all that fiber versus we ship you something, you flip a switch, and congratulations, you now have 200 megabits up and down.
Gurman also says that modem might look pretty good in a Vision Pro down the road.
Sure. I mean,
assuming we can use outside. But
I think one of the challenges really is that for a lot of the Vision Pro content, it's so big that you need a lot of cellular. You'd be using up a big part of your cellular to pull the data. So,
but maybe as an AR device, it would be more useful. So you know where you were.
I don't see a lot of people, even myself. I mean, I'm pretty aggressive about using my Vision Pro. I use it almost every day at some point, and I do not put it on outside unless I'm in a plane.
Right.
This is the only time I turn it on is if I'm sitting window seat. I close the thing and off I go, but outside of that, I don't really use it in public.
It would be more for augmented reality. And that's actually what Gurman says. And
I think the chips make a lot of sense when those headsets get smaller or become glasses, and you need to be able to design your own cellular capacity.
Imagine a Meta Ray-Ban with a cellular connection. And actually, the way it works now, it connects to your phone, which seems fine, but well, there you have it. That's the entire grist for the rumor mill. Boy, it's gonna be a tough show. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy Ihnatko, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell. Will make up some more rumors right after this word from.
You'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent. Pepsodent. Pepsodent.
Do they still make Pepsodent?
I don't know. I used to love Pepsodent.
I'm sorry that we just had a sponsor and then I made fun of them. I apologize.
They're not the sponsor of this show. We're gonna edit that out before we get a cease and desist from whoever owns the trademark for Pepsodent. Although it would make an excellent modem code name. I just want to
Pepsodent.
They're sponsoring
right up there with Arm and Hammer.
They're sponsored the Bob Hope Radio Show, so I don't know if that exclusivity is broken yet. Because
I think that's where that came from. The minty flavor is derived from sassafras.
Nothing better than sassafras.
Unilever still sells it outside the United States and Canada.
There you go.
Yeah. So if you're living outside of this country,
why? Why do they not sell it in the U.S.? Like there's
the sassafras.
Is it illegal now or something?
I don't know. It's been taken out of our foods. Make America sassafras free again.
Okay.
I'll get RFK right on that. Take the sassafras out.
Sassafras. The Brazilian court has overturned. This is a tattered tale. The injunction that they had imposed on Apple's App Store. You may remember Apple was ordered by a Brazilian antitrust regulator to open up the App Store. Apple appealed. Brazilian courts decided last week to overturn the injunction imposed on Apple, which would have forced the company to allow sideloading within less than 3 weeks. That was a little quick. The court said, that was disproportionate and unnecessary. They said it in Portuguese, but you get the idea. The judge understood that this is from 9 to 5 Mac. Measures imposed by the regulator change in a sensitive and structural way Apple's business operation. Obrigado. Now, this is still going to have to happen. It's just not going to have to happen right away. I don't know. The judge overturned the injunction. The Brazilian regulator can still appeal. Investigations will continue. Apple could still be forced to enable sideloading in Brazil. They just have more time to think about it and fight it.
Yeah. I think they will. And it is a thing that they can use as an excuse because it's different from what they've been asked to do somewhat in the past. I think, like tech companies do need time to make changes and test them and roll them out
20 days
to users.
Is a little fast.
I mean, even no matter where you feel about like Apple and its regulation and all of that, they do need time. I mean, it's not unreasonable to say you've got a relative, as long as you do it, you can have 6 months to do it or whatever, because it is hard. Software, they can't just flip a switch. Now, if they ask them to do the Europe thing here, maybe they could try to expedite it. But even then, you give them some time. That's not unreasonable to me.
Yeah. Anytime someone gives someone 20 days to do something, it takes 20 days of meetings to figure out what to do. And I immediately make a bunch of decisions about how technologically, salient the person making the decision is. Should they be even talking about this? Should they be in this conversation? When they say 20 days, you're like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Just flip a switch. It's literally the governmental equivalent of users being like, I want this new feature. It'll only take you a couple of hours to do, right? Where they have no idea about the complexity of the situation. And this is that would be the government equivalent, which is it's law enforcement saying, just you wizards just invent a golden magic key that fixes encryption. You just invent it. It's like, it doesn't work that way. But people don't know that.
Everything's easy when you don't know how it works.
It is. Man, that's so true.
Yes.
That's a common denominator in a lot of Australia's very, very consumer forward regulation. But a lot of it is when you read the law, it basically comes down to, I don't know, you figure it out. We're just ordering you to do it. Now it's your problem.
They literally said that in the blocking social media for kids under 16. Yeah, they'll figure it out. They're smart people.
It's the equivalent of a guy sitting in the stands telling how he would be quarterback. Like I would go back there, of course.
This reminds me of there's that Onion story from like 20 years ago that somebody should do something about all the problems. That is this exact mindset, right? Which is, I was reading that the other day, and they build a wall across China, and 1,000 years later, I'm still putting up with my neighbor's pine trees dropping cones on my front lawn. I mean, it's like, what do you want? Like, it doesn't work like that. It's complicated. Sorry, it's complicated.
At the same time, sometimes you do have to push back and say that, you're telling us that if you allow outside developers to like tell their users directly about a discount, that it would actually undermine the security and privacy of the entire platform. We're going to guess that maybe you could figure out a way around that. So that's an Apple problem. That's not an us problem.
For sure. And they can use these as stalling tactics, and that's not ideal. But there is, I want to say that I also hear people who say, oh, come on, they could do this. And it's like, that's not true either, right? Like it is complicated to roll out software changes that change the way the whole thing was conceived. And the EU, which has been very aggressive on this, still basically gave Apple like a year plus to roll this out. And that's not unreasonable. But yes, it can also be used as a rope-a-dope kind of thing where they're like, oh, I don't know, we just don't know what to do, and you're like, come on, just do it.
This is why I respect mostly what the way that the EU does it. If we're both talking about the same thing, it wasn't okay. Now, as soon as it's not what they don't do things like a taskmaster challenge. Like you have 10 minutes starting now. They say here's what we spent 2 years or 3 years proposing this with your input of the industry. Here is the framework that we have developed publicly. We are not going to implement it for another year and a half. And in the meantime, we are going to have an open process and board for you coming to us when you see areas that you're going to have a problem complying and you want clarity on exactly what compliance actually consists of. Then it becomes really, really, that's the point which I start to turn around where, okay, you're a $2 trillion company. I think having a 2-year timeline to do this, as after having 3 years before this to think about it, be prepared for it, it's not unreasonable for you to actually have some forward progress on this to meet this law.
All right, Mr. Debunker Andy Ihnatko, I got all excited when I saw this 9 to 5 Mac rumor headline, OLED MacBook Pro without a notch coming in 2026. I said, see, I was right not to buy an M4 MacBook Pro. I'm holding out for the M6 in 2026. And then you said, not so fast, Bucky.
I don't know. Okay, it was interesting. The story came back from a timeline from a very, very legitimate industry analyst firm that claims to have a timeline of here's what the panel display technology is going to be implemented in across most Apple products lines over the next like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so, but then you dig in, well, okay, did the firm itself release this? No, it comes from a Twitter user who I hadn't heard of, doesn't mean anything, but I haven't heard of him. The account is only 2 months old. Okay. And the avatar looks a little AI generated-ish. So, and he doesning say exactly where he got this documentation from.
He looks like he brushes his teeth with Pepsodent. That's what he looks like.
Cyber Pepsodent.
So even the provenance of this slide is questionable.
Again, it looks like a good slide. It would be risky for him to say, "Oh, here's where I got it from," but you have to say, "Here's how I got it." You even have to just say a source from inside blank who but also I'm not identifying because to protect their anonymity. It's like, oh, look, here's something I found on the street while I was,
We should also say that this is neither Apple nor an Apple supplier, but just an analyst, Omdia. Yeah. So analysts make up stuff all the time because they're trying to, help their stock market clients know what to do.
It depends on the firm because they're not trying to get clicks. They're selling services. They're selling packages of information to people who intend. So if they can get away with that for a very short time, but not for a long time. And again, the claimed source is legitimate. They've been around for a while. If it's true, it says that the dynamic island on the MacBook is going to be replaced with just a hole punch for the camera, and that's it, which would be nice. I love the dynamic island. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I do too. I don't mind it at all. It's funny how we got used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, something that seems like a dumb idea, but then, okay, but use it for a couple of days, see if you still feel like it after a few days. And I think it's one of the most innovative, creative, and functional and practical ways to address what is foundationally like a hardware limitation, where we want the screen to get all the way to the edge, but we have to put a camera and some sensors in there. How do we do that? I mean, that's the Apple solution got me thinking on both the phone and everything else, got me thinking not so much like, oh, well, this dynamic island is like intruding upon the space of the screen. It's actually, my thought is that no, it's giving me extra pixels to the left and the right and just above and below it that it would be just bezel if it were not for that. So there are all kinds of different ways. So I'm not debunking it. I'm just saying that as root sources go, it's the sort of thing that makes me add the suffix "interesting" if true, as opposed to interesting honestly, data point.
A lot of companies moving to OLED displays. I've had some OLED laptops that I really like the screen. They're not I guess they're not real battery friendly, but at least that's what people have told me.
They're getting better. And the biggest complaint that I think Apple had internally about OLED when Samsung started rolling them out is that it's like seasoning a McDonald's burger where they put lots of fat and lots of salt and lots of carbs in there because people like fat and salt and carbs. But if you are more of an aesthetic,
it's not super accurate.
You're like, exactly.
Yeah.
But now that's been I think that the benefits of OLED are hard to argue against when it comes to user interface. When just looking at apps, it's only when you're looking at videos and photos that you might see, is this punchier than it should be? But OLED, since the Middle Ages, has become a lot more sophisticated, a lot more sensitive. When it needs to be accurate, it can be accurate. And so now you start to ask yourself, why wouldn't I not want those super, super dense blacks on the display that I can get with OLED, but I can't get with any other?
Yeah. It's my OLED. I only buy OLED TVs now. I mean, they're just really gorgeous. And I'm aware of OLED laptops only because my daughter's sensitive to LEDs and really likes OLEDs. And so I'm always looking but she uses Chromebooks. And yes, Samsung makes an OLED Chromebook. So there's no reason to think that Apple wouldn't be using OLED regardless of this story at some point in the next couple of years. That seems completely likely.
Yeah. Getting back to the iPhone SE this year, another part of the rumor package not only was that modem, but also a way upgraded camera, but also OLED display. So that makes you think that Apple is thinking that OLED is basically table stakes for the product line, unless there's a really bad technical reason why they can't do it.
The iPhone Pros now have OLEDs. Is that right?
Ooh, I
think they're IPS. I think they're still.
No, all the iPhones are OLED.
All the iPhones are OLED. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you, Jason.
You guys seem to be having a good time, so I thought I'd just let you go.
But wait, Tim Cook wants to save your life. Stephen Levy with an interview in Wired, actually a video interview in Wired with the CEO of Apple. I don't ever read or watch interviews with CEOs because I feel like they're never going to say anything. Did they, that's like, oh, wow. Did he say anything that's oh wow?
Not oh wow, but there's a lot. I liked it because it was kind of a rapid fire interview in which Steve Levy seemed to have control of the interview, as opposed to oh no, I triggered the CEO keyword of oh no, I was going to spend 6 minutes saying the same stuff about artificial intelligence as anything else. He also gave as much pushback as I think that anybody can against the CEO of that level about talking about things like the recent Apple artificial intelligence, Apple intelligence videos demos of somebody writing off a very, very jokey sounding business email, and Apple Intelligence will convert something that's a lot smarter, more professional, basically saying that, well, are you basically helping this person dupe a potential employer into thinking that they're actually more sophisticated, actually more grown up than they actually are, which I thought was relevant given that Apple was a few months ago talking about how their attitude towards using generative AI in photo editing is that we believe that the photo should represent what was actually there. So we're being very cautious about features that let you remove something and replace it with more background or something like that. It's like, yeah, but you're again, are you helping somebody to say, here is very, very sketchy language that I'd like you to turn into a very, very long and professional piece of email? That's an academic debate, not like a practical one, I should say. Yeah. But I think that's interesting. If you're going to make the statement, we want the reality of photos to represent reality, despite the fact that photos never represent reality whatsoever, what's the problem? Is there a problem with basically giving somebody a tone of voice they don't actually have? So erasing their personality, so to speak.
I will say the health app. I mean, if you haven't dug into the health app, it's incredible. Yeah. I mean, it is like looking into the sun. I've had to spend more time with it recently on tracking some stuff, and it is just, there are so many features and so many pieces of hardware that tie back. You know, I'm starting to buy all this hardware that ties back into the phone, and it's really amazing. Like, it's, you know, what Apple's doing there. And I still think that I know it's going to be the hardest thing that they're doing is the glucose levels. If they figure that out, I don't know if they'll crack it, but if they crack it, it's going to be massive. That's
a big deal. Just going onward though, there were a couple of things. Like, there was a rumor a couple of months ago where Apple was planning on investing in OpenAI. There was going to be a closer relationship, and Steve Levy asked Tim Cook directly about this. Said nope, that was not going to happen. There was a follow up. He said, well, it's not. I'm not going to say yes or no that we never considered it, but any idea that this was something that was on deck, ready to go, is just not true. That's the sort of interview this was. Like, a lot of asking questions specifically about that. Tim Cook knowing that he's talking to Steve Levy and not just somebody that is not going to be taken seriously no matter how the interview comes out. I'm going to give you some sort of a substantive response. There was a lot of coverage that came about from this because, oh my God, Tim Cook acknowledged the existence of smart glasses as opposed to AR, VR. Because with any other interviewer, if asked about that, he would have absolutely parried off of it or said, we don't comment about unannounced products. At least with someone like Steve Levy, who's had such a close relationship, not just with Tim Cook, but also with Steve Jobs before him. So he was kind of grandfathered in. He was part of the club that Tim Cook inherited. He can at least say that, yeah, that's definitely a good place to go. That's definitely on our horizon, but that's not something that we're doing right now, of course.
Well, good. Thank you
worth a read.
Making it so I didn't have to watch it. I agree with the health stuff, Alex. I mean, I think this is the right way to go with the watch for sure.
I mean, there's so much I find myself suddenly using it all the time when I'm doing swimming laps or doing walks, but then it's also like blood pressure and weight and all kinds of, and heart rates and everything else, and it's all tied together, and it's done at Apple level kind of. And again, I think that the glucose one, I think that's like sell all your stock from ADM.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Else. Like, it is
huge.
It will destroy the current food industry if it comes out.
It's a tough grail, though.
Because people go, oh, it's not going to make that big of a difference. I'm like, if you have glucose levels on your wrist all the time, and you connect the dots between what you're eating and how you're feeling with your phone, with your watch, it'll make Atkins look like a walk in the park. Like for most of the processed food companies, it's just going to be brutal. And so it'll be really interesting to see if Apple's able to. And Apple's probably one of the only companies that could probably make it work on the watch, just because it's going to be really expensive.
I would doubt that, but I agree that it's going to be an important revelation for wearables.
I use a alternative to Apple Health called Gentler Streak, so which is a little gentler, but it also, and I don't know if this is valid or not, but it has like extra activities like walking your dog. It makes a distinction between American rules football and Australian rules football. It has
blood loss.
It makes a distinction between walking your dog and walking a guide dog. I mean, it's a very weird. I don't know.
I mean, there's some things that are like Apple will tell you whether you're walking evenly between your feet.
Yeah,
like, that's the kind of stuff that is. It's like some crazy.
The gait analysis that will tell you from your iPhone.
I love
whether you might have some issues.
And then,
so this is just on top of Apple Health, so I still get all of that. And anything I record in Apple Health goes into that. But the best thing is it says, "Oh, you're really killing it."
Oh yeah,
that walk was great, Or sometimes it says you did too much, take tomorrow off, which is
great. And we're
great.
already, an Apple Watch just added, the latest Watch OS added this whole thing about effort, where you can actually grade your effort after you're done with a workout, which is a good
That's important.
piece of data, because if you had a rough time, it knows that. Right. And we're seeing more AI graded features or AI created features, the sleep apnea detection, right? And some of the other features like that. I think, and I do think there's a lot of potential for Apple here, which is why Tim Cook is so excited about it, that there's also this frontier, which is AI medicine, where we see it now. It happens kind of on the larger scale, where there's institutions that are doing analysis of X-rays and analysis of MRIs and things like that. But the bottom-up approach is using AI algorithms to look at your vitals. Apple has the Vitals app now, but like to look at your Apple Health data over time and start to say more holistic things about you, where right now they're not comfortable doing that. So they're like, oh, well, here's your oxygen uptake change, or here's your sleep total. But we could potentially get to the point where through a collection of devices that you wear, an ML model on your phone could say, I'm worried about you, right? Like that, and it wouldn't be about one item. It would be a little more holistic than that. And that's really, again, Apple likes running those videos, but this has the potential to affect people's lives, where they might not call their doctor or they might not go get checked. But an algorithm that's got access to even a limited set of data might say, I think you might have a problem. And it's not just as simple as you might be an AFib because the heart monitor says so, but something more about, I know all of this stuff about you, and now I'm worried about you. It's very interesting.
And I still think that the anonymized data is going to get to a point where that eventually it's going to be able to see things 6 months ahead of time that we never thought of. Like, I see a pattern, and I've seen this pattern 100,000 times. And this pattern means that you're going to have a heart attack within the next 6 months. Like that's going to, and this pattern is something that we can see because we have so many people wearing the watch.
Yeah.
And delivering that anonymized data is
that's how the sleep apnea thing works, right? So if they can validate based on data for a broad population, which is what the sleep apnea detection study did, then, and that's the potential. And that's why I think Apple's really interested in as many sensors as they can get on the watch or on other devices, as much data as they can get. Because there is this feeling, I know I've mentioned it here before, but there's that story about the woman who could smell Parkinson's. And it was literally like they found out that there's a molecule that people with Parkinson's
and there's dogs can smell
have on their skin, and dogs can do it, and some super smellers can do it. But it's like, it's finding data, mining data that you don't even know is there until you see enough of it, like Alex said, until you have so much data. And that's a thing that AI is very good at, is picking out the patterns and throwing a red flag. And, maybe it's only right half the time, but like, if you could make a deal that say, I'm going to alert you if you have a 50% chance of having a heart attack in the next 6 months, and tell you to go see your doctor. Well, that's worth going to see your doctor, right?
It's interesting. This story came out this week of a long-term study of mammograms, that women who paid extra to have their mammograms analyzed by AI had a 20% better result. AI is actually being used now to predict subtle changes over time, to predict a 5-year risk.
Well, and there's been situations where the AI sees something that says this is, this person has this. They don't even know what it sees. It just knows that it's there.
Right.
Like it's figured out that there's something there that tells it it's going to be connected. And so it's fascinating.
And that's why we need progressives who are, or the tech progressives working in government, because a lot of this is going to have to be policy. The only reason why we have the hearing aid feature on AirPods is because the FDA a while ago decided that we are going to have like a different lane that technological and software medical products and consumer products can go through, that is practical, safe, and relevant, that is not necessarily going to be as strict or as laborious as testing a new drug therapy. That's why they were able to actually get this going. So that's why it's weird, because AI, you want to stay way clear of the idea of ever saying, oh, well, technology will save us, because it rarely will. It's only human beings who can save us. But at the same time, you have to you have to be in the sort of mode where I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've sort of spun a little bit here. All I wanted to say was that it's going to take not just the technology, but also the technology, the medical community, and regulators working hand in hand to make sure that things are not being handcuffed, that this technology can actually help people, and not being used as just another way of saying, hi, yeah, you're paying $1,200 a month for health insurance, but we basically screened everything through an AI system that decides that you don't have cancer after all, so we're not going to okay any treatment whatsoever. And no, there's no transparency here, and no, we won't let you see any of the data that we did. We still need regulations to stop that from happening. We still need regulations to stop companies from being being able to sell a piece of software that will predict Alzheimer's based on AI, based on an app on your phone. We have to stop that. But we also need to make sure that the gate is left open and encouraging for all this stuff when there is the ability to do stuff like that to actually make it happen. Too much caffeine, sorry.
Let's see. According to Tim Cook, Stevie Wonder likes his Vision Pro. Or maybe doesn't. He says it's always great to get feedback. He didn't say what the feedback was. Okay. What else? Apple, according to Gurman, is working with Sony to improve gaming on VR.
This is a Vision Pro. Are we there?
Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. Play the jingle. Oh, my God. I need some AI help. Actually, it's not.
It is. Sony and Apple, according to Mark Gurman, are working together because you see Sony has this PSVR 2 that hasn't sold very well. So they've got a lot of extra controllers around. And Apple is thinking, maybe we should actually build in an API to support hand controllers so that games could be run on the Vision OS platform. And so they're talking about Sony will actually have to pull them out of packages of PSVRs that are unsold and repackage them as something that can be sold standalone. And then Apple will have to do a Vision OS update that supports it. But I'm all for it because, I wrote a column about this back in June. It's like, there are a lot of games. Games are good on VR. They're pretty good. And the fact that Apple doesn't support hand controllers like it supports regular video game controllers on all its platforms means that there are a bunch of games that just can't come to Vision Pro because the hand tracking isn't precise enough. So it sounds like maybe this is one of those things where it's like, we could get these two together and it sounds crazy, but it just might work. Also, I wonder if Apple is using this as a pilot program so that they can just have an API and support third-party hand controllers of all kinds, because they seem to be in a mode with the Vision Pro right now where they're very slowly using third-party partners to fix all of the things that were broken when they launched the Vision Pro. Like they have that other case from Belkin and the new head strap, and now here we go where we may actually have some actual hand controllers on Vision Pro via Sony of all people.
Those are the ones with the ping pong balls on the end of them, aren't they? I remember that from the PSVR.
The PS Move.
Yeah, the Move.
Oh, I think
it looks like an ice cream cone. Yeah,
upside down.
Are we talking about the ones that are more like the gauntlet of a fencing sword?
I think PSVR 2 has ones that are more like the Quest ones.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, the Quest ones. Yeah, that's ones we see elsewhere. Yeah, it does show like where we thought the Vision Pro would be versus where it is. Where it's like, no, we're not going to develop a brand new game for Vision Pro because that would be a waste of money. Like, no, and we're not going to even like try to convert our old game because it relies on controllers, which is what people are expecting and what makes the game experience so great. So sorry, we can't think of a way to do this. I don't care how much you want to encourage us to do it. And this is a good part of the process, I will say.
Gurman just calls it out too, which I'm not sure it's one of the first times I've seen it where they basically say, yeah, Johnny Ive and a bunch of designers had this vision for what this thing was going to be, and one of the things was like no hand controllers, no games, and no
styluses. Right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's another thing that Gurman mentions, and he has reported this before that they also talked about doing something like the Apple Pencil as a precision thing that's got. Because hand tracking is all based on vision, it's cameras, and the problem is that if you can put physics, actual like accelerometers on the hands, you could be way more precise, and you don't necessarily have to actually see the hand. And if there's occlusion, you don't have to deal with it because it's okay that you've got some occlusion. Because I know what's going on with those hands because they're in the controllers or they're holding an Apple Pencil or whatever. So it sounds like Look, anybody who's used like Fruit Ninja on the Vision Pro and has used similar games or their knockoff of Beat Saber on the Vision Pro, like it's not close. Like a $300 Quest is so much better at those games because of the precision of the hand controllers. So it sounds like this is another one of these things where Apple has belly flopped enough with this product that the sacred cows that were put there by Johnny and company have finally kind of been put out to pasture. Sacred cows out to pasture.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, and it's good because it's all of these things are things that everybody, even people who love the Vision Pro, would agree we're kind of missing pieces. And I think at this point, why would you not experiment with the idea that what if they could bring a bunch of good VR games to the Vision Pro? And if nothing else, if it doesn't sell a lot of Vision Pros, maybe it lets them be primed for a more affordable one down the road and get their act together in the meantime.
Those sacred cows are outstanding.
I'm so lost on the sacred cows. They can't, in India, they can't.
This is what they look like. By the way,
so
I was wrong. That was the Move controllers.
They put them out to pasture.
They do. They literally take them and just leave them on the mountain, and then they'll do the best they can. They're like, they're not going to be here anymore.
Good luck, cows.
Good luck, cows. See you later.
Domestication was fun, wasn't it? Now you're on your own.
Yeah, there's some grass here. We're going to leave you out in the spring.
But you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
we have every confidence in you.
Sure, you'll last a couple weeks.
Yeah. But just a reminder that like this is not like a come to Jesus moment for Apple or the design team. You can be sure that there were like long and very, very thorough arguments about should there be hand controllers, should be not, and this is just the evidence that got that side to say, yeah, maybe we should now do this.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But support for third-party controllers is fine.
That's
just like third-party game controllers on the phone is fine.
That's what you need.
Yeah. I think it's also
besides they can just launder it through Belkin if they want to have a design and put it out there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it's also important when you release a product to not necessarily put in, take the past and put it into the future immediately. So by saying we're not going to have any of these controllers at the beginning, it allows people to see where they're going to go with it and what they're going to do with it. Otherwise, they'd be immediately on those controllers and they wouldn't expand past that. They wouldn't be interested in the other things. And so I think that there's an argument for delaying that a little bit. And then again, we really are part of the R&D portion of the Vision Pro. So these are R&D headsets that have just been made available to a lot of people.
Very famously, the first Macintoshes did not have cursor control keys. They didn't have anything that you could use as an alternative to the mouse because they knew that if they did, the people would not learn to use the mouse. I don't know if this is exactly the same thing with the Vision Pro, only because what's out there, and you're not creating something brand new that's never existed before, which arguably they tried to do with a Mac. They are trying to take an existing market and make it their own and build upon it. I could see where both arguments went on not having hand controllers, but the difference between playing games or even just using creative stuff like doing digital sculpting versus, oh no, look, I'm waving my hands in the air and I'm just imagining that I'm touching things. I'm just imagining that I'm clicking a button, that I'm activating this, versus I don't have to look at my hands or think about my hands. That there's a button right here that I press in order to remove content, remove stuff from the sculpture as opposed to add stuff from the sculpture. So it was a lot of things that
there are a lot of things you can do with your hands, though. I mean, SGI had a solution for VR in the 90s that you could have gloves on and go, I want a sphere this big, and it would just appear, and then you grab onto it, just stretch it, and you were able to do that with your hands. And now they were gloves, and but that was 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago.
Apple has a long history of arrogance in product development, and I don't say that negatively. I think that arrogance in product development is important to a certain extent, but it also can meet reality in ways that are difficult as a product designer to accept. And my example is going to be the original Mac, which did not ship with arrow keys because Steve Jobs was like, no, they need to use the mouse. Was he right? Kind of, yeah, but can you imagine not having arrow keys? And they put arrow keys on the keyboard eventually because although the impulse was good and the idea at the moment was we want people to accept that you can click around on the UI. In the end, arrow keys were very, very useful, especially for editing text and not having to take your hand off the mouse. And honestly, I feel like the same thing happened here where they said, look, hand tracking is so great and we can do such a great job. And it sucks, and it does, to put on one of those headsets and then have to find your hand controllers. Are they charged? Do I need new batteries in them? Get them paired. All right, now I'm ready to go, versus just popping it on and just using your hands that you use since you were a baby, right? And all of that is true, but there are limits. And I think that's what this is a real arrow key moment, right? Which is, I do think Apple needed to boast about how great their hand tracking is. It's great in Vision Pro. It really is very good. But then you play Fruit Ninja and you're like, oh, no, it's just not for that thing, for very precise, where you need timing and you need exact hand position, which games usually do. Certain games, it's not even all games, certain games, you need that. And so I get why they did it, but I think in the long run, the right solution is probably to support third-party hand controllers, make them available in the Apple Store, probably not build your own, because they don't do that with video game controllers on their platform. They just support them all. And then let people who want that precision buy the controllers. I think that's the right decision. I understand how we got to here. And I don't think it's like a fundamental failing, because it is like those arrow keys. I think they had to go through that process. But I think that having hand controllers is as inevitable as having arrow keys on a keyboard.
I thought that was a great point you made about arrogance. Not necessarily is a bad thing, but the arrogance of Apple design, saying we are in this entirely elaborate academic theoretical mindset of what this environment, what this world should be like, and the reasons why we don't want hand controllers. And then sometimes they release that and they realize that now you're in the world of the actual user who says, this is terrible, I don't like using this is uncomfortable.
Or we want to prime them, because like we need them to learn that the new thing is good by taking away the old thing, even though the old thing is also good, right? Like like,
but sometimes like what you made me think of immediately is like right in front of me, I've got like the last generation of the pre-design, the touch bar design MacBook, where when they first came out with it, it's like, oh, well, the escape key, oh, well, that's part of the touch bar, the virtual, because people don't really need an escape bar. It'll look ugly if we put an escape key, like a physical key to the left of it. And then everyone said, this sucks. I did not know
to the Emacs users.
I did not know how often I used the escape key until I finally had to like take apart like the little dancing dolphins to make it appear. And well, what do you know? The next generation decided, hey, why don't we just put an escape key right there to the left? That's not so ugly after all, is it?
I'm just going to hold out, thinking it was Vim and Emacs users that changed the tide on that one. So
you don't want Richard Stallman coming at your house like at 2 a.m. to complain about anything.
Don't want that. To go back to the Stevie Wonder story, this is part of the Stephen Levy interview with Tim Cook. Levy had heard the rumor. He said, I'd heard, but I hadn't confirmed. Apple gave a demo of its Vision Pro to Stevie Wonder, and Cook confirmed it, partly for accessibility reasons. Now, obviously, Stevie Wonder's not seeing the video, but I guess for accessibility reasons, they wanted to get input from somebody Tim Cook called a friend of Apple. It's great to get, Tim said, it's great to get feedback from Stevie. Accessibility is important from us, always designing all of our products. So you don't bolt accessibility on at the end, it's embedded in the design process.
Sighted people might look at this and be baffled and think it's a non sequitur, but if you turn on accessibility and you use the Vision Pro,
what do you get? For
its sensors, right? The idea here is that it's a head-mounted set of sensors that can detect what is around you. And I think really, I mean, the point that this is a developer unit is absolutely right. This is one of those examples where in the long run, you're wearing those sensors on something that doesn't cover your eyes, but it still can see around you and it can read what, there's a door in front of you and, now your finger's over the two, which you can do on your iPhone, some of that now too. So I think that that's the idea there is you put in it in accessibility modes, and you get, Stevie Wonder's not looking at the screen, but he is probably hearing a lot of stuff that's marked up. And then in the long run, that's what the dream is that you've got something on your body or on your head that's got displays and has some ML training where it can give you information about what you're seeing around you. And that's the relevance here.
Cook was asked about Vision Pro sales. There was an article, I don't know how accurate, from WCCF Tech saying the Vision Pro has recorded less than 500,000 units in sales. That's not surprising. That's about what Apple wanted to sell.
When they released it, everyone was saying, well, they can't make more than 400,000 this year.
Yeah, so Sony didn't have this capacity for the screens. Yeah. So that's not a surprise. But there is an interesting second point, internal data revealing reduced usage among buyers who kept the headset.
Well, I think that comes down to apps and
reasons to use it.
What apps are there that are really taking full advantage of the process. I mean, there's some good apps, but a lot of the apps feel like someone threw something against the wall. Like it's just, okay, I get it, but it's not something I'm going to keep coming back to. The killer app, of course, which has been the killer app for every headset, is that watching movies on it is great, and it's better than any of the other headsets. So that's what gets you to come back. If you spent the last 15 years or 10 or 15 years buying Apple movies, then it's a great headset. If you didn't, then it's probably not as useful. I have 600 plus movies in my account, so it's really nice for me.
Tim Cook says, I don't know if you're using it very much, but I'm there all the time. I see new apps all the time.
I play with new apps. I go, oh, look at this. Let's open it up and play with it. I don't know. There's not a lot of new apps that I go, oh, they're getting there. Like that was kind of an interesting idea, but that's usually my response to most of them so far.
Yeah. Steve Levy asked, reports are that it hasn't sold at the level you folks expected. What happened? And Tim just said, it's an early adopter product. That's it. Yeah. For people who want tomorrow's technology today, those people are buying it and the ecosystem is flourishing. That was one of the few places in the interview that I thought, okay, I'm going to keep a straight face because I was lucky to get this interview with you, Tim, and I don't want you to throw me out.
I think Apple only has one gear, which is full-on product launch. And I think even before they announced it, we were talking about how at $2,000, it was a developer kit, right? And an early product. And then when we got more detail, it was like, this is not going to be a hit at $3,500, nor should any reasonable person have expected that. But Apple's hype and marketing and PR and all that, I just don't think they're capable of marketing anything as anything but the next greatest, biggest hit ever. And you see it even in his responses where he's like, not quite sure what to say, because first off, they very rarely have anything that would even be considered a flop. And I'm not even sure I'd call the Vision Pro a flop. It's just sort of a weird thing that they put out using their normal conveyor belt products when it really probably should have been sold out the back door in a corrugated car, rolled up aluminum loading dock, right? Like that's probably where it should have been, but they don't have that. They just have the tube that's silver and made of the finest aerospace grade titanium that blasts it out to the whole world. And I mean, seriously, I just don't think they've got another gear. And so when this weirdo thing came out and they're like, well, let's try it. They're like, right on it, Chief. We're going to blast this thing out there. And I just don't think there's anybody even capable of saying, no. Let's be subtle because this product doesn't have broad appeal. Because when's the last time Apple made a product like that? Ever.
Yeah, but I think there's also a chicken or egg thing where if you don't have at least 500,000 people with the product, it gets hard to get people to even think about developing something for it because it's not, so I think that there is if there were 10,000 people, it's then a science project. It's not going to be, so at 400, 500,000 people, it's a function of figuring out how to let them know that it's there. But there are plenty of good business models in that number of users because those are users that spent a lot of money on something that isn't absolutely necessary. That's a really valuable market. So it's just a function of figuring out how to serve that market effectively.
And on the developer side, I think that their attitude going in was similarly like that they only have one speed and it's the App Store is a hit, so developers will come. And not this is a platform that's kind of weird and isn't really gonna have a lot of sales for a while. So they didn't do that.
But I think that also I think that there are some developers that you're seeing experimenting with this stuff, and there's a huge advantage if a product ends up. I mean, who knows what'll happen with the product, but if the product ends up being successful, there's a huge opportunity to be there when no one else, when the thing isn't moving very fast. You don't get that very often, especially with an Apple platform. And the other thing is that a lot of us are very closely watching the Blackmagic camera, and I can't understate how important that camera is to Apple's headset because Apple, how many times have you said we're working directly with this company to build a piece of hardware from Apple? I don't know if they've ever said that before. We're building hardware through somebody else or with somebody else. And it's really important because that camera and Resolve's integration and everything else means that suddenly there could potentially be a lot of very, very good content that's made available to folks that isn't just Apple making it. I mean, the Apple stuff has, it's been an interesting experiment. I mean, I think that this is the same problem that we talked about earlier where Apple doesn't pay attention to when they're building a product, they don't pay attention to anything else that's there. And it feels like when they made the content, they didn't pay attention to any other VR content that's been made and what we've learned over the last 10 years. There's just a lot of really basic mistakes that were made from a design perspective. And I think that giving VR, there's, a handful of us that have done a lot of VR. And when we get a hold of that camera, I think that there's going to be a lot of new content that's out there that will give Vision Pro folks, it's not going to sell a lot more headsets. It's just going to make the folks that own them a lot happier with what they have.
Well, if you own a headset, you're going to be invited to Porsche's media events. No, maybe they're going to provide one. Probably they'll provide one for the auto press. Anything to get cut through the noise in the auto press. Porsche says they're going to be giving Vision Pros with pass-through and a display system with 4K resolution for each eye to the press so they can peel back the outer layers of the
I wonder if they're using when I saw this,
Carrera.
I wondered whether they're using jig space, because this looks so much like they either looked at jig space and said, can we do that, or they are doing it inside of jig space.
Is jig space the one that came with the demos on the Vision Pro that you could take apart the race car, that thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is the same, because it does look like that, doesn't it?
It looks exactly like it.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, I can say that jig space is still probably as if I was going to pick one app outside of movies that I show to everyone first, that is the one. Like it is. It's really impressive.
And this is actually, despite the fact that it's obviously just kind of, come on, press, you want to do this? It actually is probably a pretty good use of this technology to show what's going on in the engine on their turbo, right?
Yeah, you can. I mean,
plus it's Porsche, so
I mean,
$3,500, no big.
Well, again, that's the market. That's the market that bought the headset, is very aligned with Porsche and Ferrari and Range Rover and all those things.
Yeah, and there's always something that if Apple had failed to do this well, then that's the only way that I think this would have been a failure as a product. That there were going to be lots of people who are willing to spend $10,000, $20,000 to have these in a lab or in a demo area, and then to create specific experiences for high-end customers or people that they really, really want to get a message to in a very, very direct way. Because it really is the idea of we're going to take apart this car, and you can actually. Anything you want to know about, like, where does this? I don't know enough about cars to say, if you want to get the flomastone, I want to see exactly where the flomastone connects. Is it directly through the manifold, or is it obliquely to the manifold? Yes, we're going to let you actually do that without actually having to take the car apart. All kinds of industries in which you need to train people, in which you need to inform people, in which you have an assembly task or an education task you need to do. Again, or a design task. If you fail to allow a huge architecture firm to allow your client to have a walkthrough of their latest $200 million development project, make changes, make notes, make design changes, and have that come across as a wonderful experience, that would have been a failure. And they're absolutely not failing on that basis.
Well, what I will say is that I don't think Apple is moving fast enough, and this is the same problem they had with iBooks, and I'll keep on coming back to that, is that the tools to develop the content is still too hard, and it is, the jig space is a great example. I love showing jig space, but it's really expensive, and I don't even know how the development works. And that is something, if Apple, really should be, if they were going to spend money on something, is get this into Keynote, get this into something else, like Moto, I think, is getting end of life or whatever. And there's people from the Moto team that are at Apple. They should just buy the app, and make a 3D development tool or something. But the idea is that I think Apple has to figure out, how do we make creating a lot of this content much, much easier and that was the problem with iBooks, is that it wasn't developed well. It wasn't, supported very well, and then the platform itself didn't do very well. And I think that Apple has another opportunity to do this, and it feels like they're doing all the same things again. So that's the challenge.
And that's the Vision Pro segment.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
You might have noticed during that segment the disappearance of Jason Snell. Santa Cook has come early. Let's find out what's under the Snell Christmas tree after this word from Prestone. Oh, I turned the volume.
Wears out.
Wait a minute.
Antifreeze isn't permanent.
It's not.
Wears out.
Yeah.
So every fall, my baby here gets a fresh fill of Prestone antifreeze.
Thank you, Jack Palance. You're watching.
That's good acting.
It's good acting. My baby here. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Jason Snell, Andy Iannacco, Alex Lindsay. Jason, I hear the UPS guy came a little early today. What you got there, Jason?
MacBook Pro.
Ooh, which one?
All mine, M4 Max.
Ooh, that's not a review unit. That's one you purchased.
No, I wrote about this at Macworld last week. Got a lot of weird responses from people who are very angry. I don't know why. I mean, it's the internet,
what are they
I guess.
Angry about?
But they're angry that I wrote that I made a personal decision to buy a laptop instead of a desktop to replace my existing desktop.
because you were going back and forth on Mac Studio versus Mac Mini.
So in Mac Mini, I decided that the M4 Pro chip was not a big enough leap from the M1 Max that I have in my Mac Studio. And then I had that moment where I realized, I have two different desks in my house, plus I travel. And I have two different computers that I use in those, and it's a pain to switch between the computers. And, they make a laptop that has the Max chip in it, and I can dock it at two different desks and have my screen and be very happy. And it's literally the same computer. So I used to be a laptop user where I would dock it. And then when the Retina iMac came out, I was like, all right, well, that screen is too good. I'm going to do it. But I'm back to the laptop life now, getting the M4 Max, and I'll just use that everywhere. Mostly docked to a studio display and an external keyboard.
Yeah, so it is a
trackpad.
desktop.
Basically,
it's just a desktop that you could take with you.
But if I visit my mom in Arizona, I will bring it with me, and it'll be my computer. And, it's just every time you switch between Macs, all of our documents sync now, but then I set this thing, or I download an app, or I update an app, and then I go back to the other computer. And I'm like, why isn't it doing this thing? Oh, right. That was happening on the other computer, not on this computer. Now I have to do it here. And I'm looking forward to not only having a much faster computer, but also having the same computer everywhere.
You might have gotten some of the hate by the headline, why I'm finally ditching my desktop Mac for something better.
Suffice it to say, I didn't write the headline, and I wrote to the editors afterward and said, could you change the headline?
And they said no.
I actually think that's a lighter headline than it was.
God.
We're getting rid of the Mac or whatever. Here's a pro tip.
It's all about clicks. I know.
My Macworld columns.
You don't do that.
I post links to them on 6 Colors, and you can see my headline there, which is what's better, one Mac or two.
Yeah, much better headline.
But I don't
not
need
as good
the clicks.
for links. Yeah, not as good for clicks.
Well, those people were baited and angered, and I hope they're happy or angry or whatever state they prefer.
And I did, by the way, the other thing, I actually did buy the Mac Mini to replace my Mac Studio. Very happy with it. It partly was decided by the fact that I had done the same thing as you did by buying an M3 Max last year to make a portable desktop. It's ended up basically running the shows now. So it's kind of tethered.
That's not bad.
But I'm going to wait for that OLED M6. That's what I'm waiting for.
It's not for everybody, right? And I'm very clear in my piece that I have this weird setup where, because my garage in the winter, the only way to get it to be even close to usable heat-wise is by plugging in an oil heater, electric oil heater, and it uses a lot of electricity, and it's still never really that warm. And I could just work in the house.
Yeah.
So I set up a second desk, except then I'm using my MacBook Air, which isn't very fast and is also out of sync with my desktop system. And so for me, this unifies everything. And so it's very convenient. But I also wanted, again, missed by the people who are just angered by the headline, I also wanted to use it as a moment to reflect on the fact that in the 10 years since I abandoned being a MacBook Air first person, Apple's game when it comes to hardware and Mac OS is so much better than it used to be for laptops, right? We've been in a period for 20 years, 30 years maybe even, that the percentage of Macs sold that are laptops just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. And Apple has noticed. And in the Intel and even PowerPC era, when I would have these laptops that I would dock to a external display, the experience was bad. It would lose track of what monitor was where. Everything would move around. All the windows would move. All the icons would move. It got really confused.
That was one of the reasons I stopped doing it.
Yeah, sometimes it would not go to sleep when you unplugged it. So I'd get home and I'd take my laptop out of my backpack, and my backpack was super hot because the laptop had just been running in the backpack. And my point is, Apple Silicon era, none of that stuff happens anymore. It's not perfect, but it's almost perfect, because I would wager now that probably there are more people who use a Mac laptop attached to an external display than use a desktop Mac. I actually think that that's probably the case, because laptops are so popular now. It's more than 3/4 of all Macs sold are laptops. So the story is they've gotten a lot better. They work a lot better. Docking stations with Thunderbolt, especially the dock story is a whole lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, I ordered that new Otherworld Computing Thunderbolt 4.
Yeah,
dock hasn't come yet, but
I've got a CalDigit dock here, so you can literally make it that it's a single cable to your laptop that does all of your data through the hub, and it will power it.
Yeah,
and that's the dream. So like that was part of my point, is that as somebody who didn't do the primary laptop thing for a while, I have gotten to see 10 years of advancement. I mean, yeah, I see a little of it in my MacBook Air in the back of the house, but it's enough to make me commit, because it's not a sort of second-class lifestyle.
No.
Whereas back in 2013, even then, not even 2008, 2005, 2013, you're not using the laptop the way that they intended it really to be a desktop. Like they kind of just didn't put in the effort, and boy, they have put in the effort and the engineering on the hardware side and on the software side. So so here it is, my new computer that I will take everywhere with me. I'm looking forward to it.
Specs, please.
It's a base. I actually almost bought it on Amazon last week.
Wow.
Because it's a base model of the Max, right? Except for storage, because I wanted to have 2 terabytes, because I did not want my current Mac Studio has 2 terabytes and it's using 1.5. And like, I never want to go back to that. Like, I never want to play that game where I'm with the 1 terabyte iMac I had, I was constantly shuttling things off and on in order to do video projects. So 2 terabytes is good for me. So instead I did a configure to order model, but everything else, it's the base RAM, but the base RAM is like 36 or 48. I forget. It's enormous, and it's the base model, so you can build more CPUs and GPUs, but it's still a lot because it's a Max. It's the high-end stock configuration plus a little more storage and space black and no nano texture because I don't care. So that's
How
it.
much?
Oh, I don't actually even know. I think all in with taxes, it was about $3,000. But I also got an Apple Friends and Family from a friend and family, so I got a little bit of a discount that way too, which was nice.
Good. Yeah, I wish I could afford it. I'd love to do that, but since I did buy this M3 Max just a year
you just
ago,
did it.
Can't really
don't buy a
justify
laptop every year. Don't do it.
No, I'm gonna wait. I'm telling you, the OLED with the M6. Coming out in 2026. That's the one I'm holding out for. And if Mark Gurman, if you steered me wrong, I'm going to be pissed. Or Omdia, or whoever it was that steered me wrong, or that 2-month-old account on X. I'm going to be pissed. No, I think that even if they don't know what they're talking about, I think that's going to happen. So, what do you think? Every other year a new laptop?
I mean, it depends on what you want to do. If you are
finances, I guess.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think you could go years without getting a new laptop. Honestly, I think
using
most
the
people
M2
could.
MacBook Air day in, day out, and I'd be very happy with it.
It's good. Trade also it depends on what kind of work you're doing. And then, I do know people who sell or trade in their old laptop, and that allows them to increase that cycle a little bit.
Yeah,
and
I do that with phones. Yes,
that's good too. So like, it really depends. But yes, I decided that I wanted the Max chip because I do have enough stuff between video and some podcast transcripts where I'm using Whisper and a bunch of stuff like that. Like it's my job. This is going to be my sole computer. I'm going to take that extra speed. But the fact is, for most people, I think we've talked about it here, you just get a MacBook Air and you'll be fine for years. In fact, I had somebody ask me about, like, a friend of mine was like, my kid is just going back to college and he needs a system that'll, like, he can use it as a computer, but mostly it'll just be like do Python scripts and all of that. And I said, well, for that, you should just get the $649 MacBook Air M1 at Walmart, right? Like, even that computer is more than most people need. And that's an old MacBook Air, but it's still great because the M1 is still great.
Yeah. David Schaub says they do now have M4s in the Apple refurb store. I'm looking. I don't see any, but it's all mushed together. I guess I could do a find. I shouldn't show it to you, so I'm not going to.
I got the sweet discount. I'm doing fine.
You got the sweet discount. That's good. How much is that discount?
I don't even know.
It's too bad I don't have friends at Apple. That's the real problem.
I just gave my friend my credit card and said,
nobody at Apple knows me. Or at least if they do, they don't admit to it. Let me put it that way.
Before the internet days, I used to work for Sony, and Sony, if you went to the Sony store in New York, you could buy everything for 60% off. It was just as an employee. And I said, can I buy this for people that my friends and family? And they were like, sure. Yeah, you can do that. And I was like, really? And I was like, they were like, yeah. I said, just don't sell it. They said, don't sell it to people you don't know. And I said, can I get it for people that I sort of know? I was a marketing person. Can I get it for music? Can I use it to help them buy stuff for their, as a music director, can I tell them that I can buy them stuff? No, they said, oh, no, sure. In fact, that's what we want you to do. And I was like, why do you want us to do that? It's because everyone wants to know a Sony employee. Because it was an influence peddling thing. I'm sure it ended when the internet came, because you would scale too quickly. But in the pre-internet days, that was so you always wanted to know somebody there so that you could get your next stereo system for 60% off.
Well, pro tip is the Apple Friends and Family discounts reset at the end of the year. So if you have a friend or family member who works at Apple, now is a good time to see if they have an extra that they haven't used, because then they reset at the end of the year. So that's a thing you could just tap your little personal network, and you might be able to get, 15% maybe is what it is, something like that.
That's good. The educational discount's like 10%, right? So that's
right.
Good. That's pretty good. Well, congratulations on the new member of your family.
I'm excited. Big move. Haven't bought a new computer in a while. So
what's the first thing you're going to do after the show?
Migrate my old computer to it.
Okay. Do you do a full migration, just like a regular everyday
migration assistant via Thunderbolt cable? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, that's what I did anyway to the Mini. My only problem with that, and I've been doing that for a while, and I've realized now, I use, as I mentioned, you should take a look at it, Sync thing to sync them all up. And if you do that, Sync thing thinks it's the new computer is the old computer. It doesn't reset itself. So I have to remember from now on, delete the certificate files and it'll reset itself. So there's probably a few apps like that where you're taking along the old. If you're decommissioning the old computer, it's not too bad. But if you were continuing to use it, it could be confusing for some apps.
You need to find it a new home.
Here's the next question, which might be for the panel, and I hope the listeners will evaluate on their own. When it arrives, how long before you stop washing your hands before you use it? Because when I bought this one, it was like, it's going to be on the desk and it's going to stay on the desk. I'm going to be carrying it carefully. And then it took me like 4 months before it was like, I'll just take it into bed and like I'll be eating a peanut butter jelly sandwich with it.
I got crumbs. Fine. I admit it. There's crumbs in my M2 Air. Yeah, there's definitely crumbs.
But there is a time where you're like, no, this is going to be the nice one. It's going to be nope. I'm going to be wearing a tie while I use it. I want to look good.
It's funny that you said that, because I just cleaned my MacBook Air. I had purchased new microfiber cloths, which, by the way, there is a certain process to cleaning these that I didn't know about. I was just throwing them in the laundry. Don't do that. Go to Reddit and look up microfiber cloths, how to clean them. Apparently, there's a thing. And then I found, I don't know what this is. It's called apple juice. It's for screen cleaning, screen device cleaner. And I realized it's probably just water, because it smells like apples is the whole point of it.
Well, definitely don't use actual apple juice. We just want to make sure we tell everyone, we said apple juice. It smells like apples. It will get sticky. That's all we're saying.
We used to have a couple of screen cleaners I really liked, and they're all, I think they went out of business, or we can't get them anymore. Yeah. But
and by the way, these things are shockingly cheap. Like you can get like 1,000 for 20 cents.
You're the king of microfiber.
Well, because this is what I wrap my camera, my web camera in, like for transport to the library and back, because it'll be soft, and also I can clean the lens. I always have like one of these like in my laptop bag.
Andy, don't throw them in the laundry with your other clothes. You have to wash them cool and dry them cool, because you can't get them past, I think, 67 degrees centigrade, because it'll melt the fibers.
They are very much plastic. They're not.
They're plastic, and they suck up lint. So if you put them in with other stuff, you're actually filling the fibers. The idea is you've got to empty out the fibers so they'll restore them to their pristine state. Apparently, I stop reading Reddit. I got to stop reading Reddit. It's a bad habit I have. Now I'm an expert on all sorts of useless things. I guess we can go to the entertainment segment in just a moment. Andy has kindly divided up all his stories into segments.
I did. Can we, before we move on though, there's something, one last thing from that Steve Levy interview that I wanted to talk about, only because I wanted to get Alex's take on it, because of course it takes place in the Apple campus. And he's asking, hey, you mentioned the Steve Jobs Theater, which was designed with product keynotes in mind. Now you launch products with pretend videos. We ever go back to live presentations?
Good question. I'm glad he asked that.
And then he basically gives you the logical one, which is, well, during COVID, we learned the audience is primarily online. Very few people can fit into the theater, and we want to have more people engaged in it. So you got more productivity on tape than you can live because of live transitions on stage, and it's both. But then this is why he's such a great interviewer. So Steve follows up with, but don't you miss the vibe of a live keynote? And then Tim says, I do miss it.
Aww.
I do miss it. Twice.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's really hard to have that many speakers be good on stage, and I don't think Apple ever really hit that mark. I mean, Steve Jobs is really good at it. He was exceptional at doing this. I think that it takes so much effort. It's not, when you record something, you got to get it right once out of X number of tries. When you do it live, you have to get it right every time. And like when you go out there and there's a whole bunch of moving parts and you got to get them all right and they got to sort them out, and there's so much rehearsal. It's not just that it's a more efficient or better for people to watch. It's just a huge tax on an enormous number of executives to actually get them to be ready to actually look good. And, about half the time you miss the mark, and then it's not as good as what it was when it was recorded. So I get that he misses it, but I'm just kind of like.
But I do enjoy the thought that even the CEO of this company is like, this is not what was said, but this is what I'm inferring. Was like, it was kind of nice to have this really, really exciting day when everyone was cheering, and you'd meet all these people, and it was going to be wonderful.
Well, they still do that a little bit. You just show the video, and then you have the demo room afterwards.
Yeah, true. But it's not like,
it's not the same. Going up on the stage and having people say, "Good morning," and having people go.
I think we should also take all those comments with a little bit of a grain of salt. A lot of bands talk about how much they love going back on tour
until they do.
And there was, the most telling one was, there was an interview with Eddie Vedder on Sunday Morning, and they said, do you still enjoy touring? And this is a band that tours all, Pearl Jam tours all the time, and Eddie looked at him and just said, wrong question. like he wasn't gonna sugarcoat it. And I think that a lot of times bands talk about how much they love seeing their fans and being with their fans and everything else, and most of it, they just need the money, and I think that a lot of times people will say that they'll say a bunch of things because it probably sounds good. I don't know if they really miss stage. Being on stage is a really nerve-wracking thing that most executives don't particularly look forward to.
Even performers, Laurence Olivier had paralyzing stage fright for his entire career, but I think he probably still loved going out on stage. It was scary. That's part of it. What's fun about it is the adrenaline you get, the rush you get.
Yeah. It doesn't sound as good. His answer's a little disingenuous, right? Because what he's really saying is, well, when COVID happened, we had to pre-record instead of using a live stage, and we discovered that was better because we could control everything. And they didn't suddenly discover that more people watched online than were at the theater, right? Which is what he said. Come on. But that's okay. What they decided was the pre-record gave them complete control, and it let them do multiple takes, and it let them, mix and match how they did their editing, and they added fun little video flourishes as Easter eggs, and it's more effective for something that was always a video presentation for 99.99% of the people who watched it.
Well, but at the same time, they had a lot of decision points while designing the Apple campus to say, how much money do we put into an enormous enormous live theater fed to the gills with the greatest AV and the greatest everything? And they still decided that it's going to be worthwhile to be able to get a couple thousand people on campus to do something live in front of them.
But that's absolutely.
The value was definitely always seen.
But that's not what he said. What he said was, in COVID, we realized most people watch online, which is duh. Of course, that was the case. What they were doing was saying, we're really good at live. We invented tech presentations as live theater. Steve did it. We're going to continue his legacy. We're going to build a theater. And then they were forced by COVID to do a completely controlled thing. And we're like, oh, actually, this works better for us. Let's just do this. But that's not a pithy response to Stephen Levy's question. So instead, he says this thing that's, it's just not true, which is we realized most people are online. Come on. No, it's just that they have better control and production over something that they build as a film.
I'm just going to add a possible show titled Jason Snell says Tim Cook is a lying liar who's lying about this film with lies.
There you get the comments on that one.
Episode 951.
Yeah, that'll go. Good Macworld headline. Good job. Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, lots of clicks on that, man.
I'm done. I'm done with desktops. People and Subhead, people who use desktops are stupid, right?
Yeah,
let's just get that out there. Now I'll bring in the hate mail, that a thing I didn't actually.
Let's get them all. All right.
Bring it in.
We're going to take a little break. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko, Jason Snell, Alex Lindsay, and yours truly. More to come. We actually have a bunch of stuff still to talk about.
A friend of mine told me, try America Online. I said, why? I've got a computer. He said, try it. You'll see.
Just try
those. I love those.
I saw that.
We could leave them in. We probably can't.
I want
Is
some
this
of that.
some sort of trick?
I always feel like every time
I've already got a computer. What do I need American Online?
A friend of mine said I should try LSD. I said, what do I need that for? And he said, try it.
Try it, buddy.
Try it. Just
First
try
one's
it.
free.
Yes.
Smoke this funny cigarette. Let's do entertainment news. What do you say? I always like doing a little bit of this. Lisa saw the trailer. She came running into the room and said, Severance is coming back. I said, yes, that's exciting. That's very exciting. That'll be sometime early next year, right? January, I think.
Yeah, January.
Yep. Golden Globes are in, and Apple, as usual, does pretty well in the Golden Globes. Apple Golden Globe nominations led by the show I love, Slow Horses. We all agree. I think
we all
that's amazing. Disclaimer, I watched. I had, I had some misgivings, but Alfonso Cuarón, who's a very famous director, decided he would rather do a mini-series out of this book on Apple TV than bring it to the movie theaters. So it got nominated for Best Female Performance in a Limited Series, Cate Blanchett, which actually she does deserve. Kevin Kline, who is the horrific old man, Best TV Male Performance. But he's going to be competing with Gary Oldman from Slow Horses, who should win every time.
Yep.
Slow Horses also Best TV Drama. Jack Lowden, I'm not sure which one he is in Slow Horses. He got Best Supporting. Jason Segel in Shrinking got a nomination for Male Performance, and Harrison Ford in Shrinking got a nomination for Male Supporting Male. Oh, this is in comedy.
Comedy, yeah, good show.
Yeah, I hear it's a good show. I've tried to watch it several times. That's kind of the story of my life with Apple TV. I've tried to watch it, and for some reason I get disappointed. I don't know why.
I think I'm watching more series from Apple TV than any other platform. So I
gotta watch Black Doves on Netflix. Just came out. That's a good one. That's a Slow Horses quality entertainment.
I got hooked on what was it, Paramount's. I would not watch it. I was like, this is not
Yellowstone.
Gonna be any good.
Yellowstone, no.
Lioness.
I heard Lioness is incredible.
It's really good. I was like, I'm not gonna
it.
watch that. That can't be. And then I got through the first one. I was like, it's okay. And the second one, then I hooked.
Is it about a lion?
No, it's about
a spy.
About women that are in CIA, and but they're brutally good at what they do. Let's just say,
and they just coincidentally are gorgeous, right?
Yeah, So
like Charlie's Angels. They weren't chosen.
So it's Lasagna, right?
It's like Charlie's Angels, with a lot more weaponry and more swearing. So
Lisa will love that. I'll definitely.
It's Charlie's Angels with a hard edge, and there's
Taylor Sheridan, the same guy who did Yellowstone.
Yeah. So I put it off for a long time. I was like, I'm not going to watch it. That can't be any good, and I was wrong.
And as Andy always, in fact, I don't want to steal a pick from you, Andy, but he always does like to mention you can watch Charlie Brown.
I have an alternative. Let's talk. I'm glad to talk about this in the main show. Yes,
I did watch the Thanksgiving one. That was Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown is a classic. And you're right. You can see You could see it's in high quality, so you can see it's like you're watching a drawing come to life. It's really amazing.
You can tell when there's like 3 or 4 cells like in the stack.
Stacked up.
And you can tell that the Charlie Brown cell must be the top because there's a shadow line off to the right of it.
Isn't that amazing?
And it's like. Again, this is one of the many trivial things that like the youngest generations don't understand, that we were never meant to see it like this.
We were meant to see it 400 lines SD standard definition
with snow and ghosting and So it's shocking to see all these details, to see the brush strokes in the back.
It's like you could think, they did that one with a crayon. I mean, it's really I love it. It's great. You're really seeing into it, and it's really fun. So Charlie Brown Christmas, that's the one with the little tree that's, funky, like mine, will be on Apple TV. Again, Apple bought these, but they're going to make it available for free this weekend.
Yep.
Yes.
So if you have the app, you have to have the Apple TV app installed, but it will be for free on Saturday and Sunday this week.
December 14th and 15th, which is a perfect time to watch a Charlie Brown.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You can also go to tv.apple.com. I keep forgetting that they
they stream it on the web. Nice. Yeah. Very nice.
You do need an iCloud account. That's all. Got to get your data.
In the showbiz, you quote the Major League Soccer Commissioner Don Garber in an interview with CNBC. Subs for the Apple MLS subscription are higher than expected, although he did not say any specific numbers. Is that right?
Yeah, it wasn't because we haven't, obviously Apple doesn't talk about like any specific numbers, but it's interesting to know that we at Apple had expectations. They were exceeded the expectations. This wasn't an interview all about MLS, but it was like a couple of different things. Also interesting and tantalizing that he was basically saying that we'll be a little bit less opaque about that in the future. I don't know whether that meant he's going to release viewing numbers, but apparently he has decided that MLS could benefit by people knowing exactly how popular this service is, as opposed to just allowing the Apple TV aura to lift it up as high as it possibly can.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised. Apple promotes it like crazy. You can't get through the Apple TV app without being offered soccer games over and over and over again. Yeah. The Cup streams free this Saturday if you are following it.
I was watching. I haven't paid any attention to Hard Knocks because it wasn't the Steelers, and now it's the Steelers. the
Hard
AFC
Knocks is a great
whatever.
show. Yeah,
and I really, when I was watching it, by the way, if you're a Steeler fan, you have to watch Hard Knocks because it makes Tomlin look so good.
He is good.
so he's really good, but it really shows it.
We know Mike very well.
I was really thinking about Apple Vision Pro and the ability to do something that's kind of like what Hard Knocks does with MLS, where you're following teams around and getting locker room experiences or the on the side of the field. I think that might be actually more interesting sometimes than trying to watch the game in immersive. I mean, they've shown little bits and pieces of that. They show like little slices, but I think longer samples of that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Lisa watched the Dallas Cowboys one, I think, and she always called them the Cowgirls, but it gave her a new respect for the Cowgirls. So
they have a really nice facility. They show much.
They do. They really, really.
The
really
pants are green because they look silver on TV.
Yeah,
there's like a weird color. It's a weird.
Yeah. Well, of course, Apple TV would get that color right.
Yeah.
The Major League Soccer Cup streams free on MLS Season Pass this Saturday. But I think you would know that if you cared.
That was last Saturday, December 7th.
Oh, it was? Okay.
A day that will live in infamy. Okay, I won't tell you who won.
Wasn't it fun? I thought
It's no Premier League. Is that what you're saying, Jason? Who cares?
I didn't say that. You said that. That's like a Macworld headline. Come on.
I did notice that after the F1 race in Abu Dhabi, Brad Pitt posed with one of the drivers and his co-star, and there's Tim Cook in the paddock, as they say, in the Formula One season ender. So I guess they were still shooting this Brad Pitt story. So it's almost it's in the can now. It's down. They're taking it over to Lucassound to polish it up. It's coming out sometime next year, probably later next year. I don't think you want to come out too early.
Yeah, I think it's in June or July. I think that an article that I read in some
June 27th.
Thank you.
2025.
Yeah, I think I was reading a sports business article that was saying that because this is like the next F1 season doesn't start until like up 2 months before the release date.
Right,
so this would have been their last opportunity to get any actual footage of F1.
Yeah.
It also the article though made this little, not a rumor or anything like that, but made the notation that ESPN's exclusivity on F1 ends in 2025. Maybe there's a reason why Tim Cook has been so buddy with F1 for the past like year or two, which would be tantalizing, particularly like how we've been discussing about how cool like Apple coverage.
I would
F1
watch F1 on Apple TV, and I would pay for it. I pay for F1 TV. I would definitely pay for that. That I would be excited about that. Let's see. All right. Wow. We got through all the entertainment. You have put in a ton of hardware stuff, which is kind of interesting. Here's a flat Mac.
Yes. Sorry.
So this is from Kevin Noki, who he says he saw an iPad concept from 1980. And this came out from Frog Design, and he decided he was going to make it himself.
Yeah, there's a famous, really wonderful book by Harman Esslinger, who basically published this art book about here are all the designs that we came up with that are just concepts, and he's like a legendary designer. He came up with the design language of Macs and Apple like for throughout the 80s, and one of them is this tantalizing looking like kind of a fusion between a Macintosh and an Apple 2C with an integrated like screen and an integrated handle, and he decided. This guy who's well known amongst circles about, hey, I like to basically build Macs from scratch, meaning I will even design the case and build it. Got in touch with Harman Esslinger saying, hey, is it okay if I actually build one of these for real? And he actually gave him not like blueprints, but here are the dimensions of the mock-up that we made. And the keys are all custom, everything. You start, and it's not like, oh, well, we've got an technically at the heart of it, emulation is running on a Raspberry Pi, but don't think this is just, hey, look, I 3D printed a box and it boots up into Linux and then you can do, no, it's like you turn it on, you hear the system chime. In the 40-minute video, he explains that to get the startup chime when you power it on, he needed a special controller that just does that.
Oh, wow!
And it wouldn't be a Mac if the 3.5-inch drive floppy didn't auto eject, and you can't get those drives anymore. So we basically built a mechanism for a modern drive that would have it eject, and wrote all the code so that the eject function would actually eject the thing. It works with he created code in a custom microcontroller, so it works with ADB. Yes, it's because it's based off of Raspberry Pi. You also get HDMI out. You also get USB. You also get other things. But again, it wouldn't be an 1984, 1985 Mac unless you could plug in an Apple desktop bus like mouse and keyboard. The keyboard is exactly the same kind of weird Frog Design keyboard. It is completely functional. The display that he sourced does have a touch screen, so he thought, okay, why not just actually have that work as well? But it's not as though this is, again, for all intents and purposes, this is a perfectly functional Mac that looks identical to this.
It looks like it's running System 7. What is it's an older system, yeah?
Yeah, it's running System 7. And again, it's so accurate that it's not as though he created an SD card and put it on the internal, like Raspberry Pi. He installed System 7 on this thing from floppy disks.
Oh, my God. He also, I know, took a picture of it with the Sony Mavica that uses a floppy disk.
Yeah.
And then he pops it into the Mac.
He decided
Kevin Noki, you win. You just won the internet. Wow.
And then, of course, it runs off of an internal battery. And again, it's a 40-minute video. It's worth watching because he doesn't like teach you how to do this, but he walks you through everything he did step by step by step by step, where there are no shortcuts taken whatsoever. If Apple had, if this were something that he were hired to prototype, this is exactly the way that it would have been done, step by step by step by step. And
you could show this to Steve Jobs, and Steve would say, "Yeah,
exactly."
Okay.
It's like,
no, we're not going to make that, but thank you.
Yeah, it's like it was a delight to watch.
It's really cool, really neat. So he does this. This is what he does. He does a lot of stuff like
this.
Yeah,
I think I mentioned a video of his like several months ago. He decided to make an entire Macintosh out of nothing but brand new components. So which started off with, okay, so I need to come up with a 3D model of the actual original case so that I can 3D print it. And everything, again, internal was nothing. It's not like he cut down a Mac LC motherboard to do it. No, this is all like modern off-the-shelf components. But once again, it's like, well, I don't want to switch this on. And then you see the Raspberry Pi load up screen. And then you see all these lines of text and then it boots into.
I have his Raspberry Pi case, the one that looks like a Mac.
Yes. I think he sent me and you.
He sent those to me.
And
a mouse
based on the frog design and a mouse. Yeah, it's.
Oh,
he is
Kevin.
So freaking talented.
Now I know who you are. He's German. He is also on Insta as KevinNoki. Thank you for the mouse and the the Raspberry Pi case. I forgot all about that.
The Raspberry Pi case was
that was awesome.
He's not having these made in China. He's basically 3D printing them. So he occasionally does low run productions of some of these things. So he's a good follow because you'll see something which he will not say it, but it will be implied that I'm making like maybe a dozen of these. So if you want one, buy it right now and don't even think twice about it because you're not going to get another chance.
Very cool.
And yes, that is still my Raspberry Pi case on my desktop right now.
I still have them. Yeah, that's very nice. A French company says they figured out a way to do upgrades for the Mac Studio, third-party upgrades for the Mac Studio. The company Polysoft has reverse engineered the storage modules, they're proprietary, and plans to offer, upgrades. Pretty nice, pretty sweet. Maybe you should throw out that old M1 Mac Studio just yet, Jason Snell.
Should sell it and say it's upgradable.
Yeah.
This is the new one, the one that can be upgraded.
They have something they call RIROP, RIROP, which is Rossmann is right over voltage protection. That's pretty cool. We're not recommending it. It's brand new.
What could possibly go wrong?
I'm gonna leave my Mac Studio sealed shut, but still something to know about if you have one. Let's see. You referred to a Fast Company interview with the designers of the Mac Mini. Apple's M4 Mac Mini is a tiny miracle inside the drastic redesign. Michael Grothaus story. It's behind a paywall, so I can't see it, nor can.
Yeah, as usual, the other like Apple sites like grabbed it, but basically, it's interesting. It wasn't as like in depth as a regular engineer interview might have been, but it does like address things like this was exactly as small as we could make it and not more small than this.
Right.
Or I'm saying we probably could have been even more aggressive with the smaller size of the Mac Mini if we decided to only design for M4.
Yeah.
Before adding that it was important to design for Pro consumers as well. So it's like, we can't have a different one for the M4 Pro. So.
And keep in mind, they know what the profile of the M5 and M6 and M7 probably are, and they know that this case has to support all of those.
It's small enough. It's so cute on my desk. I love it. It's so cute.
Yeah. And also contrary to what we were saying before about like certain, like, again, arrogance, lowercase a arrogance, where there was discussion of like, do we want to put ports on the front of this? And again, according to the interview, they basically said that, people love this on the Mac Studio. Let's basically vote in favor of customers having the convenience that they want, as opposed to, but there are holes cut into our beautiful facade. But whatever shall we do?
Apple Pay's first competitor has arrived in Norway. Don't get your hopes up. Ever since Apple opened up NFC, it's been theoretically possible. Vips is a mobile payment app, VIPPS, first third-party app to offer tap to pay on iOS. A story from The Verge.
Yep.
Actually, it was Mac Rumors who had the scoop. So let's
as usual, we'll be standing by with bated breath to see if the world comes to an end because a third party had access to to the NFC chip on the iPhone. Probably no.
Yeah. If anybody's in Norway, let us know. Tell us how it's working. And, this story kind of bugs me. I don't know what to say about it. You remember Apple proposed a system that would scan for child sexual abuse material on its devices. Hue and cry caused them to stop doing that. They are now being sued by victims of abuse, seeking more than $1.2 billion in damages, saying they shouldn't have abandoned that it made it possible for them to be abused.
I think that this is
I'm
what
sympathetic to their story, but I don't know if Apple's responsible.
This is the Heat Initiative too. This is basically that same group, and then they're the ones who organize the protests outside of Apple.
They go and look for people
events
they can use to. Yeah. Okay.
And I think this is what Apple was trying to head off at some point when they first started it, and then there was so much pressure to not do it that it became, because of the all the other things that are connected to it. So I think that
there is one thing that confuses me, because it is my understanding that they do scan for CSAM on iCloud, but the lawsuit says that they are not.
No, because it's the stuff that is in your iCloud is encrypted.
They can't scan
and they don't have the key. And if they don't have the key, they can't scan it. So the story is that they built a system that basically sat on your device and compared images only when you were going to upload them to iCloud. Before they uploaded to iCloud, they would compare them to the database using a fingerprinting method and basically refuse or throw a warning or something if it was detected, which is a really weird system in a way, right? Because they wanted to not be able to decrypt it on their end because they believe strongly that they shouldn't have access to your stuff. But the fact that they also didn't want to have it be actively scanning every image on your system, so they made it part of the upload process. Yeah. And I think that there is a philosophical disconnect here where it's a little bit like our conversation earlier about, the wizards will come up with a magical technology to do this. And basically, the people behind this lawsuit say child sexual abuse material is evil, which it is, and therefore you should do everything in your power to find it, including if you have to build it so you can peek on the cloud and create a backdoor, we want you to do that. If you're going to create a cop that sort of scans all files on every iPhone in existence, you could do that. And if you don't do those things, you're responsible for what happens next. And I think that's where the disconnect is, that Apple's like, well, but no, there are lots of other reasons why we don't do those other things that preclude us from doing it in this case, but it's more complicated than just this one issue.
Yeah, we're not doing it to promote CSAM by any means.
Exactly. The center of this, according to I've got the PDF in front of me, that they're basically the center of the four allegations they're making is failure to act. That the fact that they came up with this idea and they did not implement it meant that they knew that this is a problem and they willfully decided not to do anything, again, according to the language of the lawsuit. And I obviously don't know how that will play out in court. And there are a couple other allegations that are more subtle, but that's the smoking gun that they want to sort of leap upon. So yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's so difficult to walk that line. As always, we have to find that balance between keeping people safe and being able to get at the people who want to hurt other people and being able to maintain privacy. And so sometimes we have to we don't throw people in jail without a trial and without the state having to prove that they committed a crime. Obviously, this means that a lot of people who are guilty go into jail because go free instead of getting taken off the streets. But it also means that people who are innocent don't have to have as big of a problem as they would have. This is the decision that we decided to make. We could have made a different decision 500 years ago, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever. This is what we're doing. So I think that's where we are.
A scam you might want to watch out for. This from the Los Angeles Daily News. Scammers are going into Apple stores and pretending to be you and picking up Apple products that you had ordered before you could get in there to get them yourselves. Now, you may say, well, how could that possibly happen? The QR code, don't they need the QR code from your order?
If it sounded like that someone might be getting a hold of their email.
Yeah.
And then getting that QR code. And that QR code probably shouldn't be the only way. If you have a $4,000 device, it might not be the only way that Apple should check your ID.
Apple's denying responsibility, saying they didn't steal it from us. They stole it from you, even though they picked it up at their store.
Yeah, it's weird. This was also in the Orange County Register, who had a longer piece about it. This is not just it seems to be isolated to Southern California, mostly around LA, but it's not like just this one or two oddball thing. There are a bunch of people who have reported this. The Orange County Register reporting isn't 100% clear on whether or not the Apple Store was absolutely checking IDs. There are some of the incidents in which the claimant said that Apple checked the persons that said they checked the ID, and that's why they did everything that they could. There are some in which they didn't say that. They just said, we saw the QR code and we just handed it over. But they are consistent in that Apple's position is that no, they didn't steal anything from us. They stole it from you. So you're going to have to call the police, and good luck with that. But get out of our store because our transaction has concluded.
Yikes.
And I would love to see this tested because
I think that's not the case, because you could say, well, they had a higher responsibility to make sure that it was in there.
Person. That's why I hope this gets looked into. I made some cursory checks. I couldn't get anywhere in the last couple of days about it. But that's really interesting, where it's been paid for, but they have control of it. What is their legal responsibility to not release it to the wrong person? It seems to me as though, especially if they can demonstrate that the person at the Apple Store was supposed to check an ID but did not, and that's why this person was able to walk out.
If your car gets stolen from a valet station at the local restaurant, it's not your problem. It's the valet's problem. It seems to me similar, but anyway.
But there's also, like I said, there's also the big question of how did the criminals get a hold of the QR code to begin with? That implies that
maybe
there's
they
just people
SIM swapped them,
but again, it's complicated. Like how would they know that this person had bought an Apple device, or are they just simply have thousands and thousands of compromised accounts? They're using basically malware as a service, so they can basically ask the company they're getting malware as a service from, please alert us to if any of our compromised accounts have an email from the Apple Store with a purchase confirmation, so that we can then go in, grab that QR code, send a mule out to go pick it up. It's worrisome to think about how this could have happened. At least one of the people who are cited in the story says that, no, I don't get any weird phishing emails. I don't think I've been compromised. Of course, how would he know? But it's not as though like this is grandma who said, hey, look, free USB drive lying on the street. I'm going to take it and plug it into my Mac.
I'm trying to remember. Weird. I've only done this once, and it was a couple of iPhones ago. They send you a text. Or do they send it via email? They send you a text. I'm trying to remember how I proved I was me. It seemed like a pretty painless process, very quick, painless process.
Yeah.
Might just have been showing a QR code. I don't know.
One of the people said that they only found out that it had been stolen because they got a confirmation, either text or email, from the Apple Store saying, hey, congratulations, enjoy your new Mac. Someone picked it up. Said, that wasn't me.
Not me. Okay, last story before we take our final break. The FBI says, because hackers are in the phone network, this Salt Typhoon Chinese hacking exploit, and we really can't get rid of them. They're like cockroaches. So you should stop using unencrypted apps. You should use encrypted apps to message, like Apple's own system or perhaps Signal. And then it turned out they actually said responsibly managed encryption, which means that we have a backdoor into, which honestly, I don't know what that would be. So what they're admitting is, Salt Typhoon hackers used the backdoor we gave law enforcement 20 years ago with Kalia to get in our system. We can't get rid of them. Now we want you to use a new system with a new backdoor. Thank you very much. Maybe I won't.
That's called cognitive dissonance. You're trying to hold two differing opinions in your brain at the same time, which is that backdoors are good, but also our enemies have exploited our backdoors.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah. When you read all these, I guess the FBI and CISA and others basically had a conference call, and I haven't seen the transcript, but from the report, it seems like they said, wait a minute, wait. we didn't just say use encrypted messaging, did we?
No, because now we're going dark. So use encrypted messaging that we could subpoena for the clear text.
Yeah.
Which I don't think there is any, not with end-to-end anyway. There is one exception. Do not use RCS on your iPhone to message an Android user, because that is not encrypted.
Yeah, they did say that explicitly, didn't they?
Yeah.
And
maybe that's how this is happening. I don't know.
But part of I guess there was one way in which they were saying nice things about the iPhone. Basically, one person who was in on the call said that he said you only use a phone that has timely security updates and updates them automatically. And he seemed, according to the person who was on the call, he seemed to be trying to say iPhone without saying iPhone. Right. But yeah, RCS, Apple could have, Google generally supports end-to-end encryption through their RCS by having their own service that does that. There's a proposal through the committee to make that part of the open standard. While they debate that, Google has basically put it into their own RCS support platform that carriers can actually subscribe to.
So if you're Android, chances are that RCS is end-to-end encrypted.
Yeah. And but Apple basically, not necessarily incorrectly, said that we don't want to have to implement a third-party security protocol. Right. We would much rather work with the governing agency to develop an end-to-end encryption protocol. Basically, help them to build the protocol that will become part of the free thing. Kind of like how they were contributing to USB-C along the development of the thing, and basically their suggestions made its way into the final specification.
Oh, the irony. All right, let's take a little final break, and then your picks of the week, gentlemen. Thank you for helping me fill out this show with as much stories as we could. And really, thank you to Andy, who's been really great about filling out the rundown. Thank you, Andy. Most of those stories were Andy's.
I only
contributed a handful. You're watching MacBreak Weekly on the Twit Network. I hope you know that, and many of you watching live right now, 1,114 people. That's really great. 1,114 people watching us live on our 8 streams. There's a Discord stream for the Club Twit members, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, X.com, Facebook. In fact, I was chatting with some Facebookers, which is nice. Nice to have you. Kick, LinkedIn, 8 different platforms you can watch us live on every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific. That's wonderful. Time for the picks of the week. What do you got, Alex Lindsay?
So it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, but I want to recommend using something like ChatGPT or Claude or others, and try programming with Xcode with those.
Interesting. So this is a new feature of Xcode that it actually does it in Xcode, because I saw.
I wasn't even doing it in Xcode.
I could download inside of Xcode.
I just did it. Saturday I decided I'm going to try to write an app. I have to admit that I've never really gotten into the whole, I wrote a lot of code when I was a kid, and the whole Xcode or IDE process just never really and I've tried a couple things, but then I get bored because I have to write something that's boring so that I can learn how to do the thing that I want to do. What I found was on Saturday, I was like, I'm just going to try to do something that I want to do. And I can't talk about the app right now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an app. I'm just going to prompt the code. And then I just sit there and ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT will just create the code and say, hit copy, open up it. Literally it's open Xcode, select this app, select this thing, paste this into this. This is how you publish it. This is how you, and anything you don't know, you just go, well, how do I do that? And where is this? And how do I do this? And how do I do this? And I learned more about Xcode in 3 hours than I had learned in years.
Nice.
Not because the part that what was happening was this gets into the equation that I use a lot of times. Action equals possibilities greater than circumstance. Suddenly my circumstance was way down, and my possibilities, I can actually have an app I can play with. And I was literally playing with it. Within 15 minutes, I had something that I was playing with, and I was like, oh, okay, but I don't want this. And then I tell it what I don't want. And then I put these things out. And then now I want to publish it to a different computer. Now I got to go through all of that process. But the point is that I suddenly was just bouncing around asking questions. And if you haven't coded, it's really, really interesting because very quickly also ran up against the limits. Like, I'm going to have to learn how to code to fix this problem. Like, this is not going to be, this is not fixing everything. It's not building the whole app, or I'm now going to partner with a programmer, hand them, this is what I wanted to do. These are the things that aren't working. Look at what this created. But I'm able to, the ability to prototype very, very quickly is astounding. And if you haven't played with it, you need to play with, like, if you have an idea that's been sitting around. Now I've got all these like app ideas that I've had for years, and I'm just going to start making prototypes, and play with them and kind of work on them. But I just think that it's a really fascinating process, because I learned a lot about the mechanics of Xcode almost by accident, in things that were stopping me before, and I'm starting to understand the whole structure and where I put everything and how I make it all work. And so it doesn't have to be in Xcode, as you said, ChatGPT can integrate with it, I think, now, and Claude can do some of those things. And I think that, but I was just doing it straight out of the app and just cutting and pasting in. Part of that is I wanted to do that first because it actually forces me to know a bunch of things that I wouldn't know otherwise. And, but I think that it's, and I talked to some folks that, and one of the things you can do is you can take the URLs for documentation for libraries that ChatGPT hasn't seen and give it those. Like, here are the libraries. Now program this for especially when you're talking about Vision Pro and other things like that. You can hand it the information it doesn't have and let it use that as a guide to build the code that you want to do that. And again, I don't know if I would ever build an app that I would end up releasing from this, maybe, but I doubt it. I think that what I'd end up doing is being able to hand a very competent prototype to a real programmer to analyze and build something cleaner and better and ready to actually be released.
Yeah, 100%. There's a Jason's seen for when I do my Google podcast, we hand to the editor an edit log that anytime there's something that, okay, we need to stop and restart here, or here's the act break, here's the commercial break. And I used to basically make these notes by hand. And so I finally said, okay, you know what? Technically, you went to RPI for computer science. You are a programmer. You should be able to script or at least automate this. And as soon as the difficulty is when it's the thing that you do regularly is enough of a pain in the butt that if you think that wouldn't be great to have an app for this, but it is such a pain in the butt to actually automate it or write an app for it that's maybe doing it by hand isn't so bad. But just starting off with, okay, well, what if instead of typing this stuff into the spreadsheet myself, I used Google Docs, Google Sheets scripting, and it won't give you, I find that it's not good at giving you the entire code, but it will give you a good first cut at it. And if you are already at least basically familiar with programming, you can look at the code and say, okay, I understand exactly what's happening here. It's calling out to this function here, and then, oh, this is how you basically put data into a spreadsheet. So, okay, I get it. I get this, I get this, I get that. You might have to tweak it, but it will actually work. And now it's like an actual web app. Because it's as soon as you, and the great thing is the more you learn, it helps you to learn what you need to know. And then when you know a little bit more, you can be a little bit more specific, saying that I want you to write this completely in CSS and JavaScript. I don't want you to use any external frameworks. I want the result to be an HTML file that runs completely on device. Boom, 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 boom. And just like you say, I want you to use this framework. I want you to use this external stack. And you can even do things because these models are multimodal, you can actually just go into any drawing app and draw a picture of the app that you want. And then say, this green button here should start the clock. This is the table. So on the left side, you should have a note. The right side, you should have the actual time. I want this button to do this. And it's shocking and almost belittling how close it will give you to a complete app just by doing what you might do with a developer, which is, here's a picture of what I want. Here's what I want it to do. Can you build this for me? As not, and to be averse to say, it's not going to be as good. But again, especially if it's something I have this task that is repetitive and is boring and I want to pull my hair out, but it's not worth I can't find a third-party app that does it, and it's not worth my learning to program, and it's not worth paying a developer what they should be getting for writing an app like that. But you can make something that is functional a lot more easily than you think you can just with these. It's wonderful.
Alex, where is the assistant in it's an Xcode, right? The AI?
No, I'm just opening up.
You're not even doing that. You're just opening ChatGPT and saying, how do I do this?
The reason I did it that way specifically is I didn't want it to do certain things for me in Xcode. I wanted to learn Xcode. And so my whole thing is that I want to force it to tell me, like, go to put it here and put it here and put it here and do this. So it's writing a little manual for you, in effect. It says, because what it does
specific to your question.
It's generating the code, and it says copy this and put it into your into the content, folder. But so
it's you're also using its code.
Oh no, I use the code to write it. I mean, I'm not writing any code.
Is it Swift code?
It's Swift. I'm asking. I asked for Swift. And so
you have to tell it what language and what. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, and so and I may be limited, and I'm also learning that it's like there's no Swift doesn't like it was like Swift UI doesn't support this right now. Something that I wanted to do, and so I but what it does do is then gives me very explicit instructions on how to set up the app, how to put, and that's the kind of thing like taking the code and just sticking it in, and I realized that like coding, I think one of the problems with coding is that it's kind of like expecting a child to understand college level English to get started. And I've always thought that there needed to be something in between shortcuts and Xcode that is, it's like, I was always thinking nodal interfaces, which I still think would be a great idea. But this was like, I built something that was very good at what it did. There was lots of little bugs that if I'm making it for myself, it wouldn't bother me. I'd be like, I just jiggle the handle kind of thing. But if I was going to publish it, I would probably send it to someone again to go through it and clean it up. But I think that just thinking about ideas, I think a lot of times I'm very responsive. I need to see something to make a decision about whether I like it or not. And so I want to be able to throw something together, play with it, go, oh, yeah, that button doesn't belong there, or this doesn't work this way, or I should have thought of that, and be able to go through that process without driving a programmer into the ground of asking them to hand write a bunch of new things. And by the time I hand it to them, I've got a pretty good sense of what it looks like, and it's just, it's
Steve
really
will actually be talking a little bit about this next on Security Now using ChatGPT. He was somewhat surprised. Andy Anako, your pick of the week.
My pick of the week is a beloved holiday traditions for, must be 20 years since Star Trek: The Next Generation was still on the air. Patrick Stewart's one-man show rendition of A Christmas Carol. Now, don't be misguided into getting the Hallmark Channel movie version that he did of A Christmas Carol. This is so even before he got the job of being Captain Picard. He had this one-man show of A Christmas Carol that he did, that he'd been doing like off and on for years and years and years. And they recorded it for an audiobook, and it is just amazing. He's just doing all the voices, all the characters, all the situations. And yes, but he does Tiny Tim. He speaks in this voice, only probably with a Cockney accent. And it's just amazing. I think it's like 90 minutes long. And the first time I got this, it was on cassette at Billy 19, an insurance salvage store like that used to exist like in the Boston area. And when those tapes wore out, I got them on CD. Then I ripped the CDs to audio files. It's available in a lot of other places. For instance, if you have a Spotify Premium subscription, it's part of your Spotify Premium library access. If you want to buy it as an audiobook, it's only like less than $10, but you might actually already have access to it depending on what you subscribe to. And it's weird how these Christmas traditions or holiday traditions don't happen because you tried to make it happen. They happen because you realize that it's like the second or third week in December and you're wondering like what feels off. And then I realized that, oh, that's right. I have not listened to Patrick Stewart doing his one-man show of A Christmas Carol yet. And it's not, I can't navigate December as highly as I possibly can without hearing Patrick Stewart doing his one-man show of A Christmas Carol. Super, super high recommendation.
Thank you, Andy Anako. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap it up with Jason Snell and another holiday pick.
Yeah, in the early days of the Mac, there were a lot of silly things on the Mac that people wrote, like the talking moose, and there was the thing, the one I remember.
Buddha, yes.
Yeah, I remember, and the Oscar the Grouch and the trash can. Yep. And there was even a program called Underwear, which basically was like After Dark, a screensaver, but it ran on your desktop, so it would animate on your desktop.
Oh, what a waste of CPUs!
It was amazing. And so speaking of wasting CPUs and GPUs, Simon Stavring, who is the developer of some excellent software, including Runestone, the text editor that is across Apple's platforms, and Scriptable, which is an amazing piece of software that lets you write stuff in JavaScript and like deploy it as widgets on your iPhone and stuff like that. He got inhabited by the holiday spirit and created an app called Festivitas. It costs whatever you want. Pay what you think it's worth. I think €4 is the suggestion. And what does it do? It hangs Christmas lights or holiday lights that you can choose the colors, and you can choose the thickness of the cables and how far they droop, and it'll hang from your menu bar, and it hangs off of your dock. And that's all it does. It is wasting CPU and GPU cycles to draw. You can animate them. You can have them not animate. Sort of amazing the options that he's got here. But he has done the
you
work.
Have plenty of extra CPU cycles.
But you know what? I installed this, and it brightens my little Mac screen to have little Christmas lights hanging on them. It's so adorable. Cute. Yeah. So I highly recommend, if you're feeling inhabited by the holiday spirit, to just take
but don't be like my neighbors and leave the lights up all year round, okay? You gotta, January 1st, take them down.
Although it's customizable, so if you want to put like Easter colors and have them go do that, you can do that too. It's fine.
Now you're talking.
It's fine.
Very nice.
That's it. Festivitas, brand new, but reminiscent of a lot of old classic, fun, silly Mac apps.
Festivitas.app. Bring the silly back to your Mac.
That's right.
And Jason Snell wants to bring some joy into your life with his wonderful website, 6colors.com. Put some of those colors in your life.
I immediately programmed Festivitas to have the 6 colors of the Apple Rainbow as my colors, yes.
Good. Jason does a bunch of podcasts, including Upgrade, where he and Mike Hurley will talk about Jason's new laptop. That's
undoubtedly
exciting. Undoubtedly. Yes. 6colors.com/Jason to see all the different shows he does. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Leo.
Great to have you.
As always.
Mr. Andy Anako, GBH is calling.
Hello, Andy.
Yes, Thursday, 12:45 at WGBHnews.org. Unless I get bumped, there's some news that they are covering this week that the mayor might want some time. So as always, I'm thinking, okay, that's fine.
Do you know what you'll talk about yet?
I'm doing the rundown tonight, and a lot of it, unfortunately, is going to be like, okay, I know that the FBI, you're being told that the FBI said don't text anybody under any circumstances, but here's what's actually happening, and maybe it's okay to say happy Christmas to your grandmother this season. It's okay.
Yeah. Mr. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global and graymatter.show. What's up?
We had Cory Doctorow on last Friday. I think the episode might have just come out.
I've got to listen to. That's on Gray Matter?
Yeah, on Gray Matter.
Cory's amazing.
He was great, as always. So very articulate fellow to listen to.
Yeah.
So great conversation there.
Did Michael get a word in edgewise?
He did. It was a good conversation. I mean, it's what Michael makes great is that he's able to kind of keep that conversation rolling. And so he covered a lot of ground, obviously, with Cory. And
it's not out yet. I'm just looking at Gray Matter.
It's going to be out, I think, tomorrow. I think it's coming out tomorrow.
I look forward to that.
So that's coming out. And then otherwise, every morning for an hour a day, we get up and we answer questions. And we're focused really right now on moving our tech stack forward. So you're going to see we're working with a variety of engineering teams across many pieces of software and hardware to maximize what we can do. And so we're running right now at 4K HDR. We're getting ready to add higher frame rate and 5.1 and all kinds of other things, and then start to stream out to a lot of other platforms. And so right now it's 1 hour a day, but it's some great experts every morning getting up and answering questions. And it's we haven't missed one since March 25th, 2020.
Officehours.global. Thank you, Alex. Thanks to all of you. The happiest of holidays. Glad you're watching. Glad you're listening. And keep up the good work. Don't forget to subscribe to Club Twit. It makes a great gift for the holidays, too, by the way. 2 weeks free, plus there's a referral code, which you could share everywhere and get yourself a free month. Twit.tv/Club Club Twit. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. Watch live, as I mentioned, on 8 different platforms, or get it after the fact. Usually that's more convenient. At our website, twit.tv/mbw. You could also watch it on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to the video. Nice thing about that, great way to share clips, little pieces, if you want to share something you saw on the show with a friend or a family member. That's a great way to do it, and a great way to promote our show. Thank you in advance. And, of course, you could subscribe in your favorite podcast client, and you'll get it automatically the minute it's available. Just look for MacBreak Weekly, audio or video version, and get it every single week. Thank you for that as well. Now, though, it is my sad duty to tell you, get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.